I worked myself to death at a desk, then woke as Yu Eel, a 145-year-old trash aptitude cultivator with 1 year to reach Foundation establishment or be expelled and killed. This world ran on forced formation overtime, a corporation in robes. Then the space-time realm opened, letting me deduce and build my own system from scratch. Photographic memory and five-fold deduction, a cultivation technique I wrote myself, a system no rival could crack. The trash laborer they wrote off would drive the cultivation world crazy. Subscribe if you have not already, and drop a like to keep the algorithm fed. Story starts now. To get here, I had to start as nothing. Let me show you that morning. I walked toward the sect's spiritual chi conversion formation with a blank face and slow steps, the way a man walks toward a machine that has been eating his life. Golden banners line the path and shimmer in the sun, and every one of them shouts the same corporate gospel. Others rely on talent for foundation establishment. They say, while I grind overtime toward immortal ascension. Others slack off and lie flat while I cultivate, because a comeback is always just around the corner. Work hard, earn your spirit stones, and one clean breakthrough will make you an immortal. I have read these exact posters before. In a life that killed me hung on the wall of an office that worked me into the ground. At the entrance to the formation, Im Su-won catches sight of me and leans in to whisper to Gang Nung, the newly admitted disciple beside him. I have ears, and I hear all of it. He points me out as Yu Eel, the outer sect's famous overtime fanatic, the fool who worked so hard 3 days ago that he fainted dead from exhaustion. Disciples are required to run the formation 6 hours a day, he explains. Yet I pile on 4 extra hours every single day. I have kept that up for more than 100 years, all for one lousy extra spirit fragmentation stone a month. Gang Young's eyes shine with admiration, and he says such diligence must have earned me a fortune in stones and cultivation nearly a foundation establishment. Su-won crushes that with pure contempt. Foundation establishment, he scoffs. Keep dreaming. He tells the boy I am a piece of trash, with 5 elements mixed spiritual roots, 145 years old, and still stuck at the 7th level of chi refining. A chi refining cultivator gets only 150 years of lifespan, he adds. So at this rate, I have no hope at all. Any outer sect disciple who fails to reach foundation establishment by 146 is expelled. Once I leave the Heavenly Revelation sect, the thin spiritual chi of the mortal world will leave me only a few years to breathe. Gang Nung's face curdles to match, and he sniffs that if my hoard of stones were handed to him, he would already sit at the 9th level. Im Su-won nods along and tops him, saying that with those stones he would already be at foundation establishment. Wonderful. My own funeral, catered by 2 men bickering over who gets the savings. I step into the formation and sit cross-legged in my assigned position. A glance around shows the other outer sect disciples wired and grinning, as if someone had injected them all with adrenaline before their shift. There is a reason for that. The spiritual chi conversion formation hides a special restriction that constantly releases spirit waves to lift morale and scrub away negative emotion. It is the only thing that lets anyone stay sane under a workload this brutal. On me, that restriction does absolutely nothing, and that is precisely why my past life memories woke it all. I entered the Heavenly Revelation sect through the Ascension Assembly at 18. Since then, 127 years of high-intensity overtime at this formation piled resentment and exhaustion on my mind, until my defenses simply shattered. That collapse is what dragged up the memories of my past life, where I died suddenly from overwork before waking into this world as Yu Eel. The truly absurd part is what my predecessor did before I woke. He could not clear away a single ounce of negative emotion, and still he ground out overtime for 127 straight years, a genuine natural-born laborer saint body. All that saintly suffering left me, the one who finally opened his eyes, with the most hellish opening hand imaginable. With 5 elements mixed spiritual roots, I have exactly 1 year to climb from the 7th level of chi refining all the way to foundation establishment. If I fail, I get expelled, and the thin spiritual chi of the mortal world will make the breakthrough even harder while my last few years of lifespan tick away. That is not a deadline. That is a death sentence with paperwork. In my past life understanding, cultivators were supposed to be graceful and detached, breathing in the spiritual chi of heaven and earth. In this world, the spiritual chi is thin, the spirit-gathering formations barely function, and cultivators are worked like laborers, forced to operate this formation 6 hours a day for no pay at all. Only by grinding 4 extra hours of overtime every day for a full month can a person earn 1 single spirit fragmentation stone. Even that stone is pitiful, barely a whisper of spiritual chi, Nothing but a defective product, made by resealing a scrap of external energy into a spirit stone, whose original power was already spent. Too predatory. Too much of a scam. Even the ruthless bosses of my past life would have to raise a glass to this racket. This world is not right, not serious, and flatly insane. The more I turn it over, the more absurd it feels, because the people and the rules alike reek of madness. What kind of serious cultivation world runs on human labor to squeeze spiritual chi out of a formation like juice out of a fruit? And the memories from before I turned 18 are worse, because the mortal world is more suffocating still. Jianghu schools and powerful families hoard every resource. Ordinary people cannot even find a patch of ground to settle, and the old line about whether kings and nobles are born to high status is simply extinct here. Transcendent powers press down so hard that rebellion is impossible, and this broken world leaves the common man no way to live at all. Luckily, I did not arrive empty-handed. Otherwise, I would already be weighing whether to end it and hope the game restarts. Deep in my sea of consciousness, my soul is wrapped in a thin silver-white membrane that faintly reveals the mysteries of time and space. This is the space-time realm, a special space that formed when my soul fused with the power of time and space during my transmigration, and I named it myself. For now, I control barely 1% of it, and even that sliver has changed my life. My memory has leapt to the point of perfect recall. My deductive computing power has jumped fivefold, and the realm shields me from external mental corruption. That shield is exactly why the formation's emotion-scrubbing restriction slides off me, leaving 127 years of buried resentment with nowhere to go, which is what finally cracked my predecessor's mind and woke me. The space-time realm is not the usual golden finger. It will not rocket my cultivation overnight, or hand me godhood in a gift box. But it truly lives inside my sea of consciousness, born of my own soul fusing with time and space, not some mystery blessing from a voice in the sky. A smile tugs at my mouth as I settle on my plan. I will use my deductive power to build a cultivation technique of my own, one that absorbs and refines spiritual chi far more efficiently than anything this sect will hand me. Cultivating a self-made technique is walking a tightrope, and one wrong step means chi deviation and the annihilation of body and Tao. But time is short, and with no one to test it on, the test subject is me. Without madness, there is no survival, and next to waiting quietly for expulsion and death, any risk is a bargain. I came into this world with transcendent power. Somewhere under the survival math, I do carry the ambition to become an immortal or a god, to overturn the rules and drag these lofty cultivators and predators down off their pedestals. Those dreams are far away, though. This year, breaking into foundation establishment and buying myself more lifespan is the only thing that matters. I set my palm on the circular spirit sphere before me and channel my power to activate the formation. While it runs, I quietly circulate my cultivation technique to draw in spiritual chi, and the sluggishness is almost comic. The 5 elements chi refining technique absorbs and refines so slowly that every thread of spiritual chi takes an eternity to become usable power. That crawl only hardens my resolve, because if I do not gamble my life on something better, I really will die. 6 hours pass, and I cut off my power and rise the instant my shift ends. 2 lifetimes of overtime have left me sick to the marrow of it. I would rather spend that time in the scripture pavilion, stacking knowledge for my own technique, than chase a handful of extra stones. My predecessor only ever buried his head in blind practice, learning nothing more than the 5 elements chi refining technique and a few scattered scraps. That is nowhere near enough raw material to build something new. Ignoring the startled stares, I walk out of the formation alone and head straight for the outer sect cafeteria. Chi refining cultivators cannot yet manage Anidia, so I still have to eat to fuel this body. There are Anidia pills that could replace meals, but as a genuine pauper, I cannot afford even the cheapest one. I have barely set my tray down when the round shape of John Dado waddles over and drops into the seat across from me. He stares straight at me and tells me, low and flat, to meet him in the small woods once I finish eating. My chopsticks pause in the air for a moment before I answer with a soft grunt. In the small woods, John Dado and I stand facing each other in a heavy silence. He earned his name honestly, running a lending racket among the outer sect disciples off his uncanny head for business and the cover of a brother in the inner sect. He has built a small mountain of spirit fragmentation stones doing it. Right now, his shrewd eyes carry the full oppressive weight of a creditor, because to force my last breakthrough, my predecessor borrowed 100 spirit fragmentation stones from him. Then, without warning, he lunges and wraps both arms around my thigh and howls at the sky that I am his grandpa, his very own grandpa. That 100-stone debt has sat for a full 30 years, he wails. Now that he has finally cultivated to the 9th level and means to attempt foundation establishment, he needs a mountain of stones for a foundation establishment pill. My whole body goes stiff. I knew Giandato was unconventional, but I did not expect quite this level of shamelessness. I tell him I have no stones to give, only my life if he wants it, and I sigh that it is not unwillingness but empty pockets. He hugs tighter, his face all disbelief, and points out that I am not even working overtime anymore. So surely I have struck it rich, and can pay him back. And I had better hurry, he adds, because if I fail foundation establishment by next year I get expelled from the sect. Overtime, I tell him, is a thing I will never touch again in this life. I worked overtime 3 days ago and nearly died on the spot, and stones are worthless to a corpse. Besides, 12 spirit fragmentation stones a year is a drop in the bucket, and dreaming of foundation establishment on that is a pipe dream. He finally lets go, stands, brushes the dust off his robe, and asks with real confusion what I actually plan to do, because I cannot just sit here and wait. I am 145, he reminds me. If I miss foundation establishment this year, I get thrown out with only a few years left, so am I truly going to wait for death in despair? I curl my lip and snap that I still intend to reach immortal ascension, and that skipping overtime is exactly how I am hunting for a way out. He rubs his chin and insists, with total certainty, that there is no fast road to foundation establishment except a mountain of spirit stones and a foundation establishment pill. Then his eyes go wide, and he stares at me in scandalized shock and asks whether I have found some rich woman in the sect to keep me. He allows that I am handsome, dashing, with an extraordinary bearing, but reminds me I am 145 years old. The youth-preserving effects of cultivation keep my face young. Yet underneath it all, I am a well-aged old cut of jerky and a young rapper. He wonders aloud whether my body could even handle the job. My face goes flat with exasperation, and I demand to know who exactly he is calling old jerky and what on earth is wrong with his head. And yet, traitorously, a corner of my mind runs the numbers. Cultivators do tend to be easy on the eyes, and selling my body is, technically, not an impossible business model. The thought no sooner surfaces than I shake my head hard to bury it, telling myself my body definitely could not take it, and if I ever do ascend, a dark history like that leaking out would be unbearable. Watching my righteous, offended face, John Dotto's suspicions slowly fade. After a moment's thought, he reaches into his robe, pulls out 5 spirit fragmentation stones, and presses them on me, telling me to use them first and pay him back when I make it big. A smile tugs at my mouth as I take them, and I promise that when I make it big, I will absolutely repay him. He waves and swears he will hold me to it, then turns and strides away. Watching his round figure shrink down the path, warmth rises in my chest. Sharp as Giandato is, he knows perfectly well these stones will likely never come back. This was never a loan. It was help offered exactly when a man was drowning. My predecessor's luck was not all bad, it turns out. Back when Giandato first entered the outer sect, I merely gave him a small hand as a senior, and it bought a friendship worth this. I gather myself and hurry toward the scripture pavilion. I need old books to understand this world down to its bones, and I need a cultivation technique dense enough to serve as raw ore for the one I intend to forge. The scripture pavilion of the Heavenly Revelation sect rises magnificent and imposing, 9 levels tall. The first level holds chi refining techniques, basic theory of formation and alchemy and artifact refining, and martial arts secret manuals dragged up from the mortal world Jianghu. Any one of those manuals could touch off a bloody storm if it ever leaked back into the Jianghu. By sect rule, the first level is free to every disciple. The second costs 10 spirit fragmentation stones a day to enter, and the third and above demands sect contribution points I do not have. I step inside, and the vast first level yawns almost empty. Over 100,000 books ranked across the shelves with barely 10 people bent over them. I walk straight to the 5 Elements Spiritual Roots section, and find its shelf holds only 30-odd manuals. I pick one up and read fast, and thanks to my perfect recall, I swallow the whole book in a breath. Then I move to the next, and the next, devouring them with a thirst that never quite fills. 10 days later, I have read every chi refining manual of every attribute the first level owns. The reading has given me a shape for my own technique. My plan is to rebuild the 5 elements chi refining technique I already practice, folding in the marrow of everything I have memorized. The absorption and refining should run far faster, stacking my power quickly enough to force a breakthrough. But I remember something from the cultivation novels of my past life. That opening and using every acupoint in the body enormously boosts both speed and potential. And by strange fortune, when I check, all 129,600 of my acupoints sit wide open and unobstructed. A gift I can only credit to my transmigration. An opportunity like that is not to be missed. I stop hesitating and throw my whole deductive power into the work. A torrent of techniques flashes through my mind, and I strain out the essence, discard the dross, and feed it all into the 5 elements chi refining technique. Another 10 days pass before I open my exhausted eyes, and the new technique is finished. It also teaches me the hard limit of my own mind. My computing power is simply not enough, and though my deduction is strong, forging a technique this fast nearly killed me twice over from sheer exhaustion while I worked and calculated at the same time. High-intensity deduction is genuinely dangerous, the kind that leaves my brain smoking, and I need a way to make it stronger. For now, I can see only 2 roads to more computing power. I can strengthen my soul, or I can refine a cheat brain to assist my deduction the way a computer did in my past life. I have no method to strengthen my soul, and I know absolutely nothing about artifact refining, so both ideas go on the shelf for later. I study the finished second version of my 5 elements chi refining technique with a chest full of tangled feeling. It is powerful past imagining, and its hidden dangers are just as chilling. This is a brand new mind technique born entirely from deduction, one no living soul has ever cultivated, where the smallest slip costs my life. After a long silence, I grit my teeth and decide to cultivate it anyway. Cultivating might kill me, but not cultivating certainly will, so it is only a question of dying sooner or later, and I would rather gamble. This cultivation world is already crazy enough, and if I want to survive, I have to be crazier than it is. I sit down cross-legged, breathe deep, close my eyes, and carefully begin to run the technique. In an instant, a violent surge of 5 element spiritual chi rampages through my meridians. I groan through my teeth as a mouthful of blood sprays out and stains my collar red. Damn it, that was very nearly a one-way trip to meet my ancestors. I yank my energy back, open my eyes, and wipe the blood from my lip with lingering fear. Forging my own technique really is a tightrope walk. Over broken glass, and one careless step ends in pieces. But time will not wait, so I cannot back down. Even as I circulate spiritual chi to soothe the roiling injuries inside me, I replay and rededuce every detail. The chaotic flow and the tearing pain in my meridians become precious data that loops through my mind. For 10 days, I live trapped in one endless loop. I keep editing the technique and keep risking the new version on my own body. Each time I vomit blood, I close my eyes to heal, then dive straight back into the deductions the moment I recover. My face goes pale, my eye sockets sink, my body burns down to the wick, and still the fire in my eyes only climbs. In a cultivation world this insane, if you are not obsessed, you will never succeed. I breathe deep, sit cross-legged, and carefully run the newly revised technique once more. The 5-colored spiritual chi slides through my meridians like a nest of spirit snakes, injecting a wisp of 5 element spiritual chi into every acupoint it crosses. When it reaches the 100,000th acupoint, my face changes hard, because the spiritual chi in my dantian is nearly dry, and my intake cannot keep pace with the technique's hunger. At the last possible moment, I pull out Gian Dado's 5 spirit fragmentation stones, clench them in my palm, and a tidal wave of spiritual chi pours into me. My 5-element spiritual chi refills and surges forward again along the path of the second version. A muffled detonation goes off inside me, and dazzling 5-colored light bursts out in every direction. All 129,600 acupoints light across my body like a field of stars, while the 5-element spiritual chi tempers my flesh and my soul at once. Spiritual chi within several yards gathers and pours into me like a tornado, all of it refined into 5-element spiritual chi. My robes snap in the storm, and my hair stands on end as I become the eye of the vortex. An hour later, the light fades. I open my eyes with 5-colored divine light swirling in my pupils, throw my head back, and laugh, because I did it. When the joy settles enough to think, I sense inward. My acupoints are strung together by meridians like stars on wire, 5-element spiritual chi darting through them. The spiritual chi of heaven and earth flows in endlessly and refines the instant it enters. My control over the space-time realm has even nudged up to 1.2%. I really am a genius. The technique now runs on its own and doubles my efficiency, and although cultivating all those acupoints demands more spiritual chi, my speed is still 3 times what it was. I have not broken into the 8th level yet, but at this rate I have a real shot at foundation establishment inside the year. A successful breakthrough buys me another 150 years of life and drags me clean out of this hole. I check the sky, grab a quick breakfast at the cafeteria, and plan to head in for my formation shift. The moment I step out of the cafeteria, Joe Gusso plants himself in my path with 2 lackeys, his face dark as a storm. Another creditor. My predecessor owed this 150 spirit fragmentation stones. One more mess left in my lap. Joe Gusso roars that he wants his 50 stones back. No interest, just the principle. I brace myself and answer, all helplessness, that I will absolutely pay him the moment I earn the stones. He shrieks back, voice shrill and frantic, that I am not even working overtime anymore. So where exactly would the earnings come from? More to the point, he snarls, if I fail Foundation establishment inside 11 months, I get kicked out of the Heavenly Revelation sect. With my aptitude, a breakthrough would be a miracle. So am I really expecting him to collect a debt from a dead man? My mouth twitches because every word of it is true, and I have nothing to throw back. I only grit my teeth and swear I will break through to Foundation establishment and repay him then. He looks at me with open scorn and says he must have had water in his skull to lend me anything. Then he orders me to get to work and pay up the instant I earn a stone. I tell him flatly that overtime is off the table, and that when I have the stones, he will get them, and I try to walk straight past. I am not the least bit worried, because the Heavenly Revelation sect strictly forbids private duels among disciples, and violators are punished hard. The sect enforces that rule not out of kindness, but because injured disciples need recovery time, and recovery time means the formations run short. Then John Dotto strolls up, eyes bright with mischief, and asks Joe Gusso what kind of man he takes Brother Yi for, since Foundation establishment is a piece of cake for me. Joe Gusso's face goes black as soot on the spot. It was precisely because he watched John Dotto lend to me without blinking that he dropped his own guard and lent as well. Even as an old rival, he has to admit that when it comes to the nose and the means for money, John Dotto always had the edge on him. He simply never expected to trip over me. He snaps at John Dotto to stop gloating since he lost money on me too, then turns his icy glare back to me with an offer. He dares me to face him in the arena, and if I win, the old 50 stones are wiped clean and he hands me 50 more. I shoot John Dotto a helpless look, because without his little interjection, Joe Gusso would probably have wandered off cursing and left it there. Still, the offer is tempting. If I had any other way to shake loose from these debts, I would take it, but I do not enjoy owing people stones. Joe Gusso is a 3 spiritual roots cultivator who leans on fire techniques and already sits at the 8th level, 1 full level above me. To keep outer sect disciples chained to cultivation and the formations, the Heavenly Revelation sect never teaches them a single spell. But I have heard Joe Gusso spent stones to reach the 2nd floor of the Scripture Pavilion and walked out with a fire dragon technique. I have learned no spell and no martial skill at all, so on paper the gap yawns wide. But the second version of my 5 elements chi refining technique refined all 129,600 acupoints in this body. It gave me raw speed, physical strength, and a huge reservoir for spiritual chi, which narrows the distance more than he could guess. One good gamble can turn a bicycle into a motorcycle, and if I lose, I only take a beating. The upside is fat enough to tempt a Buddha. My face goes stern, and I tell him in a low voice that it is fine, and we meet at the arena after work. Joe Gusso breaks into a grin, says only good, and leaves with his 2 lackeys. John Dotto rushes over in a panic and grabs my shoulder, asking if I have lost my mind, because Joe Gusso does not want a real match, only an excuse to beat me bloody. I brush his hand off calmly and tell him not to panic, that I have some confidence. He looks me up and down, thick with suspicion, unable to fathom how a man 1 level lower with no spell at all would take that bet. Fearing I will be crippled, he rattles off Joe Gusso's cultivation, his spells, and every detail he knows, and I listen and nod, because none of it is new to me. At the outer sect arena of the Heavenly Revelation sect, the crowd gathers thick. The sect forbids private duels, but understands some grudges cannot be smothered, so it built an arena where disciples may spar and compete under one hard rule: no killing. An outer sect deacon stands on hand to keep it clean. Word that Joe Gusso and I are about to fight has drawn a swarm of curious disciples. The murmuring around me all runs one way. I have lost my mind, they say. The fainting spell a month ago cooked my brain, and Joe Gusso only wants a free beating since I could never repay the stones anyway. John Dotto tugs at me one last time, urging me to concede, warning that no one dies in the arena but plenty leave crippled, and that healing wastes the very time I have least of. If I am short on stones, he says, he will simply lend me more. I wave off old Gian and tell him I appreciate his concern but cannot dodge this, because if I fold today, Joe Gusso will hound me forever. Better to settle it now, I tell him. since a loss costs me a beating and a win pays enormously. He gives me a strange look and asks whether that last fainting spell really did scramble my head, since no one has even bothered to set up a betting pool this time. My face darkens as I tell him I am perfectly normal. Joe Gusso swaggers up with his chin tipped at the sky and offers me one last mercy, that if I kowtow 3 times and shout Grandpa 10 times, the whole thing is settled. I narrow my eyes, step a half pace closer, and ask him softly what he wants me to call him. He bellows Grandpa at the top of his lungs, and I light up and answer at once that yes, what a good grandson, such a good boy. The onlookers freeze, then detonate into laughter loud enough to shake the ground. Jian Dado laughs so hard he cannot straighten his spine, and even the deacon, Wang Wu, turns his face away with his shoulders shaking. Joe Gusso goes red to the ears, fists clenched white, and grinds out that I should stop playing word games and fight for real. He promises to beat me until I cry for my parents and call him Grandpa of my own free will. Then he stalks toward the arena, and I shrug and follow at a lazy pace. Wang Wu runs through the rules once, confirms neither of us objects, and withdraws to the edge. Standing on the platform, I take stock of myself. Across 2 lifetimes, the only real training I ever had was Tai Chi for my health back on Earth. I have watched plenty of thrilling fights in movies, but those routines are choreography, not combat. But I also know that real fighting comes down to speed, strength, and being willing to be ruthless. 1,000 gazes press up from below, and I breathe deep as my eyes sharpen. Spiritual power boils around Joe Gusso, and instead of casting a spell, he simply charges, right fist rocketing at my face. My pupils shrink, and in that instant, the Tai Chi of my past life and every fight scene I ever watched braid together in my mind. Response plans flash past like a carousel until my deduction picks the best one. My left foot steps half a pace left, and my whole body flickers to his flank. My right hand seizes his right wrist and pulls with his own momentum, 4 ounces turning aside 1,000 pounds, and my right leg snaps out like lightning and lands square on his backside. He pitches forward with a rush of air and topples clean off the arena, hitting the ground below with a heavy thud. The whole yard falls into stunned silence, every disciple gaping between me on the platform, and Joe Gusso sprawled in the dirt, because no one imagined the match would end this fast or this absurdly. Gang Noon blurts that Joe Gusso is simply useless to lose like that, and asks when I got so strong. I'm Suwon frowns and mutters that Joe Gusso underestimated his enemy and never even used a spell. Joe Gusso lies there dazed until his lackeys haul him up. Then he stares at me, face cycling red to white, unable to swallow that he lost to the man he always wrote off as trash. Jian Dado jumps out at once, jabbing a finger at him, loudly demanding the 50 stones, and refusing to let him welch. Joe Gusso snorts, yanks out 50 spirit fragmentation stones, hurls them at me, and snarls that this is the bet and that he was careless. He dares me to go again, promising another 50 if I win. I bend to gather the stones off the ground, unable to hide my delight, and weigh it inwardly. The gap between us may be far smaller than it looks. Even if he uses a spell, I can simply concede the instant I cannot hold, at no extra cost, and a win nets 50 more stones and real confidence for foundation establishment. I nod and give him a single word. Fine. Joe Gusso sneers, leaps onto the platform, forms his seals fast, and calls up the fire dragon technique, shouting at me to watch his true strength. Crimson fire attribute power floods out like a tide and condenses into a fire dragon a good 6 feet long. Its body rolls with flame, jaws and claws bared as it lunges at me on a wave of scorching heat. My face changes at the heat, and I pour on my power, stamp hard on the platform, and flash aside like lightning as the fire dragon slams down where I stood. Before I can settle, he summons a second dragon and drives it at me again. I weave through it, biting for the opening, then surge straight at him, my right hand cracking across his face like a whip before my kick drives into his gut. He groans, flies backward, and drops off the arena. Silence first, then a rush of drawn breaths, then an eruption of disbelief. The crowd cannot process that I turned it around under the fire dragon technique, and John Dado gapes at me and mutters that Brother Yi is genuinely this monstrous. Joe Gusso staggers up with blood at his lip, eyes swimming with confusion and refusal, croaking that his cultivation is higher and he knows the fire dragon technique, so how could he possibly lose? I open my mouth to answer, and thunder splits the sky, roll after roll of it hammering down. I shrink my neck and stare up in raw terror, screaming inside that it was only a friendly match and a few stones, and that surely that does not merit a lightning bolt. Above the heavenly revelation sect, ink-dark clouds churn like great beasts, and a silver snake of lightning tears the heavens with a roar that seems ready to crush the world. The phenomenon detonates like a thunderclap and alarms the entire sect, every face turning toward the horizon in dread. Sect leader Im Nam and the 10 elders arrive in a blink, hanging in midair with spiritual chi coiling around them, expressions grave, palms tightening as they stare into the shifting sky. My body loosens a little once I confirm no heavenly lightning is coming for me, and I let out a long breath, wondering uneasily whether such an omen means an enemy attack. As I speculate, a long river of time opens across the sky, countless figures flickering within it, some out of the past, some of the present, some of the future. Several of those figures lock into a savage battle upon the river, as if fighting to break its constraints and spill down into the present. The direction they mean to strike is the heavenly revelation sect itself. Even seen across the long river of time, that world-ending clash makes me shudder. I gasp inwardly, wondering what someone in this sect could have done to make enemies chase them back through time to erase them. Then one figure in the river surges in power like a falling thunderbolt and cuts down all the others, glances once toward the sect across the river, and vanishes in a flash. At the same moment, the omen wrapping the sect dissolves. Im Nam lifts his voice to calm the crowd, telling everyone it was only powerful experts fighting within the long river of time, and no cause for alarm. The path of immortal cultivation is long, he proclaims, and if they cultivate diligently, they too may one day reach such a realm. And then he orders them all to disperse. The words light a fire under the disciples, and every one of them, having watched true experts stir the river of time, boils with borrowed hunger and rushes off to cultivate toward that heaven-touching height. I curl my lip. That speech is no different from my old boss painting a giant pie in the air. Empty words dressed up as inspiration. I look down at Joe Gusso with a mocking little smile and tell him to accept his loss and hand over the 50 stones. His face goes a furious dark red, fists clenched so hard the nails bite his palms, and he plainly wants to renege on the spot. But the watching crowd freezes the words in his throat. He knows in his gut that the moment he sets a precedent for skipping a debt, everyone who owes him will follow, and the man who starts the rot pays for it. After weighing it, he grinds his teeth, hurls the 50 stones at me with a cold snort, and stalks off without a backward glance. I do not mind, since no one expects a loser to smile, and I crouch and pick up every stone with a grin. Giandato runs over, his whole frame jiggling, marveling that I hid this so well. I tell him it was only luck, and I truly never expected to win so easily. Then I shake the stones in my fist and say I will use these 100 to push my breakthrough and repay him once I earn more. He waves it off, delighted, and says to drop the courtesy. Watching me hand Joe Gusso a lesson was deeply satisfying payback for the man muscling in on his lending business, and he insists on treating me to a feast. I follow him to a restaurant in the market. We eat and drink our fill and we drift back to our quarters slow and content. Lying in bed, I replay the day's fights. I won on luck, with no spell and a body still not hard enough, and a real enemy would carve me apart. I want to become a well-rounded fighter, strong on every axis. So I decide that the instant I am off shift tomorrow, I will haunt the scripture pavilion for martial manuals and pick up a few techniques worth cultivating. Then I sit cross-legged and circulate the second version of the 5 elements chi refining technique. The surrounding spiritual chi floods in like a tide, refining ceaselessly as my cultivation climbs toward the 8th level. 10 days later, I have read every martial arts secret manual on the first floor and settled on a body tempering method, the bronze skin and iron bone art. It is the only one with strong results and no side effects. I chant the mantra to memory a few times and sit down to cultivate. After a single hour, I open my eyes with my brow knit in astonishment. I throw a test punch and stretch my limbs, and my muscles pull tight with 10 times their old strength. I actually succeeded, when the manual plainly warns the technique needs 30 years of grinding to master. I scratch at the puzzle. Am I simply gifted for the martial Tao, or does immortal cultivation somehow feed martial arts, though everyone insists the two do not mix? Then it hits me that all 129,600 of my acupoints stand open. I murmur that this must be the reason, even if my martial talent is clearly not bad either. The words, martial Tao, linger on my tongue as my gaze goes distant. 9 months blur past. I read through every book on the first floor of the scripture pavilion. In that time, I upgrade my technique into the 3rd version of the 5 elements chi refining technique. Then I fuse thousands of martial manuals into a body tempering method of my own, the indestructible golden body, and drive both to the perfection realm. My cultivation climbs the whole while and reaches the peak of the 9th level. Following sect rule, I collect a foundation establishment technique from the scripture pavilion to prepare the next stretch. There are two roads to foundation establishment. The first breaks through straight from the 9th level peak, with only average odds and total ruin waiting on a slip. A foundation establishment pill lifts the success rate sharply, which is why most cultivators go this way. The second is steadier, cultivating all the way to the 12th level great perfection. There the spiritual chi in the body grows so harmonious and vast that the breakthrough comes naturally with no pill, yielding a solid foundation and enormous potential. But reaching 12th level great perfection demands the comprehension and talent of a true genius. I have some faith in my own gifts, and believe I could charge for it. Yet the sect's deadline is a blade at my neck, and if I miss the window, I am expelled. So I have no choice but to break through from the 9th level peak. I sit cross-legged on my bed, exhale to still my mind, and take out my remaining 80 spirit fragmentation stones. As emergency fuel for the moment, my spiritual chi runs thin. I run the third version of the 5 elements chi refining technique, and heaven and earth spiritual chi bursts into me like a broken dam, refining instantly into 5 elements power. The surrounding chi gathers faster and faster, and I snatch up the spirit fragmentation stones and drain them dry. 3 hours later, the surge finally calms, and I open my eyes with a sick expression, because I did break through, but not to foundation establishment. I have only reached the 10th level of chi refining. It is over. It is all over. My heart drops into despair as I mutter that it makes no sense at all. The sect assessment is nearly on me, and I am stuck at the 10th level with no time to climb to 12th level great perfection. I have only 4 years of lifespan left, so expulsion looks like a settled thing. For a long while I barely leash my emotions, forcing calm so I can find the reason. Then a thought flashes through me like lightning, and my face changes hard. Perhaps condensing all 129,600 acupoints disrupted the normal rhythm of my cultivation, which is why the 9th level breakthrough failed, and why even 12th level great perfection might not guarantee foundation establishment. Regret floods me until I could slap myself twice. A deeper foundation and greater potential only matter to cultivators with lifespan to spare, and I have none. My one urgent task is not a beautiful foundation, but simply reaching foundation establishment fast enough to stay in the sect and buy back my years. This is such a pit. I sigh, then steady myself, because heaven does not seal every exit. Even expelled, I can still cultivate in the mortal world. So a chance at foundation establishment remains. But the spiritual chi out there is far too thin unless I can find a new source of cultivation energy. New energy, racking my brain until my eyes suddenly light. In my past life, we had solar power, and in this world there are techniques that drink the power of the sun, along with martial and immortal methods alike. Those methods are just low in efficiency and high in danger. If I can refine a better one, I solve the energy problem outright, because the sun is inexhaustible, and the moonlight and starlight of this world can feed cultivation too. Then my face sobers, because drawing on the sun is lethally dangerous, and one slip cooks a man to death. I will need heaps of experiments verifying every single step so I am not burned to ash before I ever reach foundation establishment. And if I can imitate the batteries of my past life and build an energy storage device, I could bank the sun's power directly, the way a spirit stone holds spiritual chi. My eyes blaze, and I nearly leap up. When I settle, I hold my breath and send my divine sense inward. My acupoints twinkle like brilliant stars, and 5 elements chi rushes through my meridians like a river, while every inch of muscle and bone glows gold under its nourishment. With my physical body alone, I am now confident I could kill a 9th level chi refining cultivator with a single punch. More surprising still, my control over the space-time realm has quietly climbed to 3%. That small number has doubled my deductive computing power again and let me faintly touch the mysteries of time and space. With sharper deduction, my plans feel closer than ever. I pocket my remaining 20 spirit fragmentation stones and head for the scripture pavilion, betting that the second floor holds artifact refining manuals and methods for absorbing the power of sun, star, and moon. More than a month later, the day comes to leave the Heavenly Revelation sect. On the Heavenly Revelation Plaza, over 100 outer sect disciples gather, all of us expelled for having no hope of foundation establishment. Watching disciples ring us, pointing and murmuring, looking at us the way people look at insignificant ants. Then a familiar cry cuts through, and I turn to see Giandato shoving through the crowd, toward me. I tell him I truly did not expect him to come see me off. He sighs softly, takes out 20 spirit fragmentation stones, and presses them on me as a small token, saying they might just carry me to foundation establishment. I shake my head and refuse, since I already owe him over 100. But he stuffs the stones into my hand and says, 20 are nothing to him, and he will earn them back fast. While for me, they could be the key. I hold them, silent a moment, then nod hard and tell him I will remember this favor and repay him when I make it big. He nods. We trade a few words about old days, and he turns and goes. Just then, a flying boat over 1,000 feet long tears out of the distance and settles onto the plaza. The cabin door opens, and a woman in white steps out, cold in bearing, graceful in figure, skin like polished jade. This is Ye Chung-sol, the saintess of the Heavenly Revelations sect. Born with a mutated ice spiritual root, she broke from 12th level great perfection straight into foundation establishment, and now, 20 years on, she sits at the early golden core realm, the dream of countless disciples, where she passes, breath catches, and whispering dies, and admiring eyes trail her like iron filings after a lodestone. Behind her walk 2 golden core inner sect disciples and more than 100 new recruits gathered through the Ascension Assembly, high-spirited or nervous, none able to hide their hunger for the immortal life ahead. I watch it all with a chest full of tangled feeling, because today mirrors yesterday, the same loop playing again. 128 years ago, I stood on this same plaza brimming with longing for the immortal path, and now I am a failure the sect has thrown away. The cruelty of this road flashes past me piece by piece. Countless outer sect disciples reduced to the sect's coolies. They run formations day and night to squeeze out spiritual chi, then get discarded like me when they wear out. I clench my fists, and the fire of refusal burns low in my eyes. I swear I will break into Foundation establishment and never again be looked down on. I will snap the shackles of aptitude and smash the high wall of hoarded resources. So cultivation stops being the privilege of a few, and I can drag these lofty cultivators down off their altar. I refuse to accept this. Why should they stand so high? I will pull them out of their clouds and let them roll in the mud with the rest of us ants. The idea is insane, but for a cultivation world this insane, staying sane is what gets a man killed. And it is not hopeless, because this past month gave me a great deal, and I already carry new plans for the future, waiting to be walked out one step at a time. Perhaps my stare burns too hot because for an instant it seems Ye Chung-sol turns and looks straight at me. Then a cold voice rings across the plaza, ordering all expelled disciples to board at once. I come back to myself, swallow the surge in my chest, and drag my heavy feet toward the flying boat. The flying boat sets down in an open field, and the instant I step off, a wall of suffocation slams into me. It is as if I have been dropped onto a high mountain summit where the air has run out. A moment passes before I adapt, and I gauge the spiritual chi out here at barely 1% of the sects. I sigh, because reaching Foundation establishment in a place this starved will be brutal. I ignore the 100-odd disciples beside me, watch the flying boat climb and streak away, and set off for the nearest city. Jin Province, Anpyeong City. I walk its streets and they are loud and crowded, vendors crying their wares, foot traffic flowing endless in both directions. But most faces in the crush are sallow, numb, and dressed in rags, with only a scattered few in fine cloth. I see more than a dozen people selling themselves into slavery, something I only ever saw in films before now, and beggars lining the roadsides with their hands out, gaunt and hollow-eyed. I duck into a steamed bun shop, spend nearly every coin on a batch of piping buns, and hand them out among the beggars. It is all I can do, and there are simply too many poor in this world for one man to save. Along the way, I also cross several rings of human traffickers, and I quietly foul their schemes and mark each one. I plan to hunt them after dark, both to cut a scourge from the city and to fatten my empty purse. The contrast punches harder the farther I go. Vermilion gates and broad courtyards on one side, collapsing thatched huts on the other. The rich eat the delicacies of land and sea while the poor pray only not to starve, sometimes reduced to eating grass and dirt, and the gulf is staggering. I knew from my predecessors' memories that this world runs on a monstrous wealth gap, but seeing it with my own eyes still guts me. Even the harshest history of my past life was gentle next to this. In a world where supernatural power is real, an ordinary commoner has almost no road out at all. The nobles and officials here truly do act as if they were born of a finer seed. A cry for mercy rips through the street. In front of the Joe mansion, a man dressed as a house servant kowtows until his forehead bleeds, begging without pause. He swears he was not slacking, that he guarded the gate 3 years on 2 hours of sleep a day, and only dozed off for a single moment. The steward's face stays cold as he snaps that a man who dozes at the mansion gate should be dragged off and given 20 strokes, so everyone learns what laziness earns. Watching them haul the servant away, One thought crosses my mind, that human life here is worth about as much as grass. The man is thin and half dead already and may not survive the beating. This world is sick. This world is insane. The mortal world is crueler than the cultivation world, the boot pressing down even harder. Then a treacherous thought surfaces. Even as a beast of burden in the heavenly revelation sect, running the formation 6 hours a day, I at least ate my fill and stayed warm. That made me lucky beside these commoners clinging to the edge of death. I shake my head violently and drive the absurd idea out, because gratitude for a nicer cage is still a trap. In this world before me, cultivators are nothing like cultivators. Powerful families own every resource for generations, and ordinary people cannot find a foot of ground to stand on. In a land soaked in supernatural power, the word fairness has become the most luxurious term of all. I clench my fists until my nails nearly break the skin, filled with the urge to overturn all of it, and reason drags me back down. With my current strength, I cannot shift these rules a hair. Even if I succeed in cultivation one day, this world is vast, and what can one man's strength truly change, unless I grow strong enough to rewrite the rules outright? I think of the universal education and the internet of my past life, then laugh at myself. The cost alone would be astronomical. Every resource is locked in the hands of the vested interests, and anything that did emerge would only become another tool for the predators. Unless something appeared that those powers and cultivators could not control. The system. My eyes flare. I do not need one of those flashy systems that kill on command or hand out rewards for checking in. Suppose I build something like the computer operating systems of my past life, run it directly in the minds of ordinary people, and pair it with a chain of other methods. With that, I might genuinely overturn this entire world. I could drag every high and mighty cultivator and predator off their pedestal, reaping enormous benefit for myself along the way. The plan sets my whole body burning, and I nearly start on the spot. Then I cool, because building a system now is pure fantasy with the abilities I have, and the one truly urgent task is reaching foundation establishment before my last years run out. Which means it is time to go settle accounts with those human traffickers. A fine way to vent, and a fine way to let them taste the iron fist of justice. Night. I cover my face, kick in the gate of a secluded courtyard, and pour in on a wave of killing intent, fists flying, cutting down everyone I see without mercy. In moments, of the 20-odd men in the yard, only 3 are left, sprawled and dying. The corpses take a breath to get used to, but I steady myself. Rather than rush the questions, I raise a hand and give the 3 a session of the great memory recovery technique, which floods them with pain until they scream. When they can think again, I ask them coldly who their mastermind is, promising a quick death for honesty and a dozen more rounds of that agony for lies. The leader stares up at me in terror and swears there is no mastermind, that they only snatch children and sell them to wealthy households, to brothels, or into begging rings for coin. I press for where the children are and where the money hides, and the 3 answer in a panic chorus. The children in the next room, the money in the cellar of the west wing. I seal their acupoints so none of them can move, and I walk to the next room. The instant the door swings open, a stench of rot and blood rushes at me. In the dim light, 13 children huddle in rusted iron cages, 3 of them with their hands and feet already broken, plainly meant to be turned into crippled beggars. My eyes go wide with rage, and my killing intent nearly takes physical shape. I was too kind. I let those men die far too easily. I crush the fury back down with fists clenched to the point of bleeding, then soften my face and tell the children not to be afraid, that I have come to take them out. I open the cages one by one and lift them free, their small hands clutching my sleeves, their thanks rising thick and broken through their sobs. I crouch and check the 3 with broken limbs and find the wounds still fresh and the bones not yet set. So I breathe out in relief that I found them in time. Then I use the bone setting I learned from medical texts in the scripture pavilion, easing each dislocation back into place. After the treatment, I ransack the trafficker's cellar, find its gold and silver, and press the money into the children's hands, telling them I will take every one of them home to their families. The whole night goes to walking them back door by door, and by the time the last child is home, the sky has begun to pale. I return to the courtyard, look at the 3 traffickers lying acupoint sealed and crippled in the dirt, and let a slow, meaningful smile spread across my face. I stare down at the 3 terrified traffickers and sneer that men who have done what they have done would not be paid off by death by 1,000 cuts. But today, I will give them a chance to live. Do they want to know the meaning of life? I ask. Do they want to contribute to the great cause of cultivation? I tell them I have a technique here, and if any of them can cultivate it successfully, I let him go, so they may choose for themselves, death or a try. They nod frantically and swear they are willing, voices thick with fear and flattery, and I unseal their acupoints. The sun-swallowing art is the solar-absorbing method I devised. I motion the first man to sit cross-legged, press my palms to his back, and pour in my power to guide him along the technique's path. Before long, solar energy floods toward him like a tide. His face flushes bright red, white smoke curls off his skin, a burnt reek fills the air, and with one heart-tearing scream, his body bursts into flame and collapses into ash. I study the ashes, rub my chin, and record the data I just harvested. Half an hour of deduction later, the improved second version of the sun-swallowing art takes shape in my mind. I step back inside, drag out another man shaking like a leaf, and tell him with a thin smile that it is his turn. An hour after that, the brand new fourth version is ready. Those three wicked men did not die for nothing, since their lives brought real progress and a small contribution to the cultivation cause of the world. A pity there were so few subjects, and if I had known, I would not have killed the other 20-odd so fast, when keeping them as test material would have served me far better. On second thought, there are several more trafficker rings in this city, and I can simply collect them and let them keep contributing to the refinement of my technique. 3 months slip by in a blink, and I pack to leave Unpyeong City for the Yu family village. On John Dado's stones, I have reached the 11th level of chi refining, and my control over the space-time realm has risen to 3.2%. The sun-swallowing art has iterated to its 50th version, and cultivating it no longer ends in instant self-combustion. All of it is owed to the villains I captured and burned through, whose deaths drove the progress. By now, the whole of Unpyeong City sings the praises of a hero who kills wicked traffickers and outlaws, leaving every criminal in the city too frightened to move. But better public order means no more test subjects, so with little choice I leave. On the road, the clash of blades and shouting rings out ahead. I hesitate, then trigger a lightness technique and close in silent as a stalking cat, parting the roadside brush to find over 30 ferocious mountain bandits with heavy sabers swarming a caravan. A closer look shows the carriages marked with the sign of Mensong Commerce, which happens to be John Dado's family business. Remembering everything John Dado gave me and how his stones carried my breakthroughs, I decide on the spot that this is a fine chance to repay the debt. These bandits will make excellent test subjects besides. My figure flickers and I appear before the bandit leader in a blink, throwing my self-made 5 elements fist. Its metal, wood, water, fire, and earth power braid into ruined phantoms that hammer straight into his face. He flies backward like a snapped kite and hits the ground dead before he can even scream. Then I weave through the rest fast as lightning, and in moments the whole band lies scattered and stripped of any power to resist. A man in a luxurious silk robe stares at it all in shock, then hurries forward, cups his hands, and introduces himself as John Jin of Mansong Commerce, thanking the young hero for his help. I wave it off and say plainly that I only stepped in for John Dado's sake. Hearing that name, John Jin's face fills with even deeper respect, and he says I must be an immortal master if I know his cousin. I nod without committing to anything, ignore him, and walk to the bandits who have not yet breathed their last. I feed each one the poison I brewed, then bend their wills until they are fully submissive. I tell John Jin to dispose of the corpses because I still have use for the 15 who live. Then I lead the 15 bandits off toward their mountain stronghold, and John Jin bows and swears he will take care of it. The bandits guide me to the stronghold in no time, a cave set on treacherous ground, easy to defend and hard to storm. Though none of that matters against me, without much effort I subdue the remaining 18 bandits inside, poison them, and lock them in the stronghold's dungeon. Now for loot. Let me see what good things are hiding in here. I search the whole place, but the common bandits' rooms yield only copper coins, and the leader's quarters only a little silver, and my interest steadily drains. Just as I turn to leave, a wooden box half tucked under the bed catches my eye. Curious whether it hides treasure, I step over and open it, and inside lie shards of stone as translucent as jade. My pupils shrink and my breath quickens, and I cannot help exclaiming aloud that these are spirit stones, and asking how a mountain stronghold could hold so many. Greed shines in my eyes as I inspect them and count 100 low-grade spirit stones and 20 mid-grade. I am rich. I chuckle under my breath, clutching the stones, drunk on the sight. And then I sober and frown, because there is no reason for a nothing little stronghold to sit on this kind of wealth. I take a single stone to the dungeon, hold it up before the bandits, and coldly ask where they came from, promising to save whoever answers for last as a test subject. A minor leader trembles head to foot and stammers that they dug them out of the cave at the very back of the stronghold and kept them only because they looked shiny enough to sell. My interest sparks, and I ask if more remain inside, but he shakes his head fast and swears they are all dug out. I nod, turn, and leave, because either way I have to see that cave for myself, and if any spirit stones remain, I hit the jackpot and my foundation establishment turns bright with hope. There really are no more spirit stones. I stare at the cave I have been carving out for 3 straight months, its rock walls now cratered and hollow. The first month gave me only 12 low-grade spirit stones, and now not even the shadow of one remains. So I sigh, turn, and stop digging for good. Across those 3 months, I burned 80 low-grade spirit stones on cultivation and climbed successfully to the 12th level of chi refining. I feel that once I break into the 13th level, I can attempt the charge into Foundation Establishment. That realm grants a lifespan of 300 years and would hand me an extra 150. That is more than enough time to enact my plan of pulling those cultivators and lofty nobles off their high horses. As my cultivation crossed into the 12th level, my control over the space-time realm reached 5.6%, and my deduction doubled again. Meanwhile, using 33 mountain bandits as test subjects, the sun-swallowing art has advanced to its 80th version, cultivable now. The energy it produces is still far too violent, so I intend to find more villains to keep polishing it. During this stretch, I also attempted an energy storage device, with some early results. Using the artifact refining techniques from the 2nd floor of the Scripture Pavilion, along with my own deductions, the device I refined can already absorb and store solar energy. But a new problem follows, because the stored energy is too violent to convert into the gentle power cultivation needs. I plan to tame it later by improving the formations, turning that violence into something controllable. I also refined a cheap brain, though the results disappoint. It mimics a computer's processor to boost my deductive power, and it does, but it devours a massive amount of spiritual energy to run. For a pauper hoarding every scrap of energy for Foundation Establishment, that is a losing trade, so I would rather deduce by hand and improve the thing when I have time. I walk out of the cave meaning to gather my remaining 52 spirit stones and my valuables and leave the stronghold behind. A voice drifts up from below, calling on the mountain bandits inside to come out and surrender. It warns that once the black and white twin swords fight their way in, no one will get the chance. My eyebrows twitch, since I did not expect anyone to come play hero, and a look of curiosity pulls me out of the stronghold. On the mountain path stand a man and a woman, the man in black and heroic, the woman in white and lovely. Each holds a black or a white sword and eyes the stronghold with wary care. I walk out and tell them, smiling, that the bandits here are already dealt with and they can leave. The woman in white, So Yoguang, snorts coldly and says no coincidence could be that neat. She thinks I am a bandit trying to trick them into leaving, and she tells her senior brother to take me down first. The man in black, Ye Hienzo, nods, agrees to handle it, and draws to stab at me, his sword technique sharp and his sword chi soaring. My face darkens, because I only wanted them gone, and I did not expect them to be this unreasonable. I flick a finger and strike the blade 3 inches from its tip as spiritual power erupts, and the black sword tears out of his grip. In the next breath, my hand closes on Ye Hienzo's throat like an iron vice and lifts him off his feet. He holds cultivation at the early Init realm, but before the man I am now, that is nothing worth naming. So Yoguang shouts at me to release her senior brother, whips out her white sword, and charges on a wave of killing intent. Her sword chi plows a half-foot furrow into the ground before the blade even arrives. I snort, hold Ye Hienzo dangling like a chick, tap my toes, and appear behind her like a ghost. And before she can react, my fingers flick out and tap the back of her neck. Her eyes roll up, the white sword falls ringing from her hand, and her whole body slumps softly to the earth. I loosen my grip on Ye Hienzo's throat a little, and tell him with a faint smile that both their lives sit in my hands now. He had better tell me what they will offer in exchange. His face goes red with helplessness, since he never dreamed of falling into anyone's hands today. After a moment, he looks up and says that a few days ago he came by a roll of animal hide recording a very profound cultivation technique, and asks whether it might buy their lives. I say I have only been teasing him, but the offer catches me off guard, and I tell him to show it, and if he is not lying, I will let them go. He says quickly that it is in his robe, and I reach in and pull the hide out, and the moment I open it, my eyes blaze. This is an immortal cultivation technique for cultivating the primordial spirit, a thing so rare that even the Heavenly Revelation sect might not own one. With it, I can strengthen my primordial spirit, speed my control over the space-time realm, and lift my deductive power higher still. Thank you, generous fate. I release Yehienzo and tell him with a smile not to be so reckless again, since another man might not be so easy to bargain with. The bandits here are already handled, so we may go. He cups his hands in a hasty, respectful salute and thanks me, then scoops up the unconscious So Yoguang, gathers the black and white swords from the ground, and hurries down the mountain. I tuck away the animal hide, return to the stronghold, pack my things properly, and set out for the Yu family village with my bundle on my back. A year passes in a blink, and I finally return to my hometown in this life, the Yu family village. In that year, I practiced without pause and pushed my cultivation to the peak of the 13th level of Qi refining, one single step from foundation establishment. I successfully cultivated the primordial spirit method on the hide, the soul shifting and spirit refining great method. My control over the space-time realm reached 8%, and my deduction is now roughly 20 times what it was when my past life memories first woke. All along the road, I kept hunting mountain bandits, highwaymen, and other villains for test subjects. The sun-swallowing art has advanced to its 140th version, able at last to draw on solar energy safely and efficiently. My plan is to pay respects to my parents in the village first, then cultivate the fourth version of the 5 elements Qi refining technique, which now integrates the sun-swallowing art. Once that set is complete, I charge for foundation establishment. I have only 2 years of lifespan left, and without the breakthrough I truly will rest in the ground. My energy storage device has reached its 20th version, still not free of the violent energy problem, but usable now with some effort. My cheat brain has reached its 15th, far stronger in deduction, and far cheaper to run. I stand and stare blankly at the Yu family village before me, unable to gather myself for a long time. At last I take a step and walk slowly in, familiar sights rising on every side. 130 years feeling like only yesterday. The village has barely changed, still mostly thatched huts, but the faces are no longer the faces I knew. I walk straight toward the ancestral graves in my memory, and when I reach them I recognize at a glance the tombs of my parents and my eldest brother, Yujin. The rest of the mounds are unfamiliar, presumably Yujin's descendants. Looking at the graves, my eyes redden and tears well up and spill over as grief floods my chest. My heart trembles until I realize this is the pull of my predecessors' memories and obsessions. I breathe deep, take out incense, candles, and paper offerings, and pay solemn respects to my parents and my eldest brother in turn. When it is done, my whole body eases, my mind clearer than it has ever been, my soul light enough to drift away. I understand that this is the last of my predecessors' obsession dissolving. From here, I can be guided fully by the consciousness of my past life, no longer swayed by the man who came before me. I let out a long breath and walk toward my old home. I do not mean to reveal myself or reunite with my brother's descendants, only to see how they live and to leave them the wealth I gathered on the road. They are the only blood I have left in this world. Within moments, I stand where my old house used to be. The building has long since changed, and only the crooked-necked jujube tree by the door still stands, its cracked bark carrying a few scars from childhood climbing. For a heartbeat, I seem to see my young self and my brother again, up on our toes with bamboo poles, knocking down jujubes. Then crisp laughter rings out beneath the tree, where 2 children of 6 or 7 chase each other in circles, one small boy in pigtails craning up at the branches. The scene overlaps so cleanly with the images buried in my memory that I lose myself for a moment. A bright, childish voice breaks in, asking me whether something is wrong, since I have stood here so long. I snap free and look down at Yu Jun and Yu Wei, their small faces turned up, their clear eyes full of curiosity. A gentle smile pulls at my mouth as I ask the little ones whether this is their home. They answer, clear and proud, that it is. Just then, an old voice comes from behind, asking whether the young brother needs help with something. A white-haired old man leaning on a cane walks slowly over, wariness in his gaze, and I turn and ask him quietly what his relationship to Yujin is. His pupils shrink, his cloudy eyes sharpen in a blink as he sizes me up, and he says Yujin was his great-grandfather, then asks who I am. I study Yu Hei, gaze steady as a torch, and tell him slowly that I knew Yujin many years and once received a favor from him. I have come today to repay the debt. As I speak, I draw a heavy money bag from my robe and hand it over. Then I turn my eyes to Yu Jun and Yu Wei playing nearby and say gently that the 2 children are bright and clever, with spiritual chi in their eyes. If they are cultivated with care in the future, they will surely make something of themselves. Without waiting for another question, I turn and go, leaving only a stunned Yuhei frozen in place with the money bag in his hands. I glance back once at the Yu family village, then turn and leave. Earlier in the village, I heard that the mountain bandits of Blackwind Fortress raid the surrounding villages often, and that several have already suffered. When the local government mustered men to suppress them, it was soundly beaten. The bandits have only grown more arrogant since, burning and killing and looting as they please, and there is no telling when the Yu family village will fall in their path. None of it surprises me, since in dark times like these, plenty of commoners have no choice but to take to the hills as outlaws. On the way from Unpyeong City to here, I destroyed more bandit bands than I can count, using the fiercest of them as test subjects and letting them serve one last purpose. That is exactly why the sun-swallowing art iterated so fast. Since Blackwind Fortress threatens the Yu family village, I will simply wipe it out, an easy task for me. And it will let me test my newly built moon-swallowing art and star-swallowing art, verifying how well I can draw on lunar and stellar power. As I think it over, I notice a scrawny little yellow dog lying by the road ahead, its eyes brimming with helplessness. And when it sees me approach it, manages one weak bark. I am taken aback, since I did not expect to find such a look in a dog's eyes. The animal resembles the scruffy yellow village dogs of my past life, closely enough to tug at me. After a silent moment, I walk over to check on it, find the pup half-starved, and take out food to feed it. As it eats, I ask it, softly, how it would feel about me becoming its master, since it is alone now and so am I. Little Yellow barks twice and wags its tail as if it truly understands. Seeing how clever it is, I smile and tell it that from now on, I am its master and its name is Little Yellow. It wags harder and licks my palm. I gather it up into my arms and stride on toward Blackwind Fortress, with a cold smile at my lips, telling it we are off to punish evil, promote good, and play the hero. Little Yellow lifts its head with two clear barks and paws gently at my collar, as if it caught every word. Deep within Blackwind Fortress, blood mist fills a gloomy secret chamber. A heavy stone door shuts out the light, and at the center of the vast room, a blood pool some 30 feet wide ripples in a way that is deeply wrong. 60 corpses hang upside down above it, dark red blood running steadily from the wounds at their necks, dripping into the pool and blooming into eerie blood flowers across the surface. In the middle of the pool, a naked middle-aged man sits with his eyes closed, wrapped in a swirling halo of blood-colored light. With each slow breath, the blood answers his call, twisting into ferocious blood pythons that fight one another to surge into his body. A thick reek of blood chokes the sealed space until the whole chamber looks like a corner of purgatory. Any cultivator who saw this would cry out in alarm and name it at once: the Blood Demon Art. The Blood Demon Art is a cultivation technique that uses blood itself for cultivation. In an age where spiritual chi grows scarcer by the year, there was once a shocking demonic genius. He thought to use human blood as a substitute for spiritual chi, the way one might use a medicinal pill, and so created this inhuman method. From the moment the Blood Demon Art was born, countless commoners suffered under it, and because a cultivator's blood holds far more energy, cultivators became its favorite prey, and many met their end. A great war between the righteous and the demonic broke out over it, and though the devil head was slain in the end, the cultivators paid a brutal price, and countless sects fell into decline. I set Little Yellow down in the tall grass at the foot of the Blackwind Fortress. I tell him to wait here like a good boy, while I go clear out the mountain bandits. He answers with a soft bark, his fluffy tail rustling the stalks. Then my figure snaps forward like an arrow off a bowstring, and I am inside the walls in a single breath. I move fast through the compound, and every time I surface a bandit drops. I never take a life, though. I only knock each one senseless, because these men are going to serve as test subjects for my techniques, and I need them breathing. An alarm goes up somewhere in the walls, and the whole stronghold erupts into panic. More than 200 mountain bandits come pouring out of every corner, weapons drawn, ringing me in. They roar the same arrogant threats about leaving my life behind here today. Since they have already spotted me, I stop bothering to hide. I never planned on being subtle anyway. I have run this exact scene dozens of times by now, so it stirs nothing in me at all. I throw myself forward before their circle can close, hands flying until the air is full of fist shadows. The force rolls out like a rising tide, tearing the wind and driving the front rank backward like broken kites. They spray blood as they crash into the men behind them, and shrieks tangle with the clatter of dropped weapons across the fortress. The count thins fast. By the time only 70 or so remain, real fear cracks their voices. They start screaming for someone to fetch the fortress master before the Blackwind Fortress is finished. That gives me pause because I have not caught a single glimpse of the master yet. I had heard his cultivation reached the innate realm. That was exactly why the government's earlier campaigns against this place all failed. Could the coward have already fled? If the bandit leader slips away, that is a headache waiting for me down the road. I cannot chew on it now. Better to finish these men first, then go hunting for wherever the master is hiding. My strikes turn crueler at the thought. The fist force crushes down in waves, and wherever the wind of it reaches, the fortress buildings fold in on themselves. Before long, every bandit is flattened and groaning. My eyes sweep the wreckage like torches, still finding no trace of the master. Just as I turn to search deeper, a roar like a mountain caving in shakes the whole stronghold from its heart. A terrible pressure surges out with it, carrying the reek of blood, and a streak of crimson bloodlight lunges straight at my face. A cold, overbearing voice fills the fortress. It calls me an ant and demands how I dare run wild in his black-wind fortress. It announces that since he has just finished mastering his divine art, he will use me to consecrate his flag. The bloodlight is already on me before he finishes, the air whistling as it comes. In that instant, I understand the aura has actually reached the Foundation establishment realm, and I nearly choke on it. How does a nothing little place like the Blackwind Fortress have a Foundation establishment expert tucked away? Clearly, I should have checked the almanac before leaving the house today. My expression goes grim and I throw a punch to meet the incoming light. The two forces collide and detonate. An overwhelming pressure surges back through my fist, and I am driven 3 steps before I steady myself. It is a good thing I have always poured effort into physical body cultivation. I have iterated my body tempering technique, the indestructible golden body, all the way to its 10th version, where that strike alone would have cost me half my life. The lesson lands clean in me right there. To stand among the strong, a man needs crushing offense, yes, but also a body tough enough to survive the answer. Otherwise, the flesh itself becomes the weak point that gets him killed against a true master. The man before me wears blood-colored robes and has blood-red eyes. I name him at once as Seisiok, the Blackwind Fortress Master, and admit I never expected him to be this strong. He grins, thin and vicious, his eyes brimming with killing intent. He tells me I have some discernment, that weathering one of his strikes proves I have real strength, but that it ends here, regardless. Then he blurs into a streak of bloodlight and comes at me again. I snort back that it is far from settled who walks away, and charge his blood shadow with my own killing intent rising. Running is no longer an option, so my only sliver of hope lies in fighting for my life. Luckily, the man has just clawed his way into Foundation establishment, and his aura is unstable. I may sit only at the 13th level of chi refining, but with a physical body this powerful behind me, I have the strength to trade blows. The red figure and the white one lock together inside the ruined fortress. Fists and palms collide hundreds of times in the blink of an eye, and the air distorts and rolls around us. The last of the wailing bandits are caught in the shockwaves and die where they lie. We are both hurled apart at once and crash to the earth. I drag myself upright and spit a mouthful of blood, my clothes hanging in tatters. A solid palm strike still burns in my chest, and my whole blood and queue churns miserably. The truth is bitter and simple. The spiritual power packed into all of my acupoints cannot be fully drawn on yet, so every martial skill I drive with it comes out weakened. Against a Foundation establishment foe with a full-strength body, I would have finished this already. Worse, his technique is a sinister thing. His flesh hard as iron and somehow able to reach in and stir my own blood against me. I look up to find Sasiak also climbing to his feet. His blood robes are shredded, a clear fist print stamped into his chest. Then his muscles ripple and the wound closes back to normal at a terrifying speed. He fixes me with a gloomy stare and says he never expected my combat power to run this high. He suggests we stop here, since dragging the fight out benefits neither of us. I agree out loud. In the very next heartbeat I lunge, my fist whines screaming through the air. At the same instant, his blood-colored palm sweeps toward me, and we spit the same curses at each other and lock together again. Then he snarls that I brought this on myself and will be buried here today. He retreats, slaps his own chest, and coughs up a mouthful of essence blood. He chants that with his essence blood as guide. Let 10,000 bloods become one, and the blood blade appear. All across the fortress, the bandit corpses shudder, gurgling blood pouring from their wounds into ribbons of light. Even the men still clinging to life have the blood drawn out of them. The lights stream towards Sasyok as if pulled by an unseen hand. In a breath, they knit into a giant blood blade 100 meters long, wrapped in thick blood mist with an eerie glow running down its edge. He roars and points, and the blade, sharp enough to cleave heaven from earth, falls toward my skull. I watch that 100-meter blood blade come down and feel my expression change, because I know exactly what a strike like this can do. My hands move fast, profound hand seals shifting at my fingertips. An earthy yellow halo wraps me as the earth escape technique kicks in. My body scatters like blown sand, sliding neatly out of the blade's lock-on range, and the next moment I reassemble behind Sasyok. My fingertips trace a line through the void, a deep blue rune flares, and the immobilization technique fires without warning. His movement seize up on the spot. The binding only holds for a few short breaths, but between masters a few breaths are more than enough to settle who lives. I do not waste a heartbeat. My hands blur through seals, and I call the fire dragon technique in a low voice. A crimson fire dragon fully 50 meters long roars into being, its coils wrapped in flame, its aura hungry enough to burn away everything. It engulfs the frozen Sasyok whole, and the collision detonates. Airwaves ripple out and shatter what is left of the fortress. I do not dare relax for an instant. I keep the immobilization technique flowing to pin him in place, my hands moving like butterflies through flowers. Then I pour the fire dragon technique out like a cannon barrage, one dragon after another, until the whole sky burns red. 20 of them slam down in a row, the ground quaking for miles. When the dust finally clears, a crater 200 meters wide sits where Sasyok once stood, its charred walls trailing green smoke. I let out a long breath, quietly pleased with myself. That should have finished him. No matter how monstrous his recovery, nothing walks out of that many fire dragon techniques. You really would never guess it, looking at me. On the surface I am a martial artist, but underneath I am a cultivator too, a mage fluent in spells. Today all those tricks I picked up on the second floor of the Heavenly Revelation Sect's Scripture Pavilion have earned their keep. Still, this fight dragged every one of my weaknesses into the light. Once I break through to Foundation Establishment, and by a longer lifespan, I need to start building my own cultivation system and my own cultivation technique. My immortal cultivation aptitude is garbage. I cannot even find techniques that reach past the Golden Core realm, so the orthodox road offers me no future at all. Far better to design a system and a technique cut to fit me. I devoured stacks of novels in my past life, and with my deduction ability, I might drag those wildly imaginative cultivation systems off the page and into reality. My martial talent is excellent, which makes this the perfect moment to found a martial cultivation system. Who has never dreamed of founding a sect, becoming an ancestor, and surpassing everyone before him? This time, I will be the Dao ancestor who opens a brand new school. I pull my thoughts back and walk to the rim of the pit. Sasyok has vanished without a trace. Only a single book lies at the bottom, glowing with crimson bloodlight, and my face turns wary as I eye the thing. After a moment, I use the dragon capturing and crane controlling technique to draw it up through the air. 3 heavy characters stare back at me from the cover. Blood Demon Art. Everything the Scripture Pavilion recorded about it floods my mind at once. Cultivating this art demands the blood of living people as fuel, its methods cruel and stripped of all humanity. No wonder some strange force kept clawing at my chi and blood the whole fight. That was this demonic technique at work. Curiosity gets the better of me, so I steady my breathing and carefully open the blood-lit pages. A faint reek of blood drifts up. The opening lines are written in a dark red like clotted gore. They teach that blood is the essence of all things, that one takes heart's blood as guide and blood as fuel to condense every drop into a Tao foundation. When the vessels of the whole body become the 9 nether blood river, the text says, one glimpses the true meaning of the longevity blood demon. Between the lines an invisible force tugs at my mind, and a seductive whisper seems to breathe in my ear, urging me to begin cultivating this instant. My whole body jolts and I gasp. The technique carries a mind-bewitching power this terrifying, and without the space-time realm on my person blocking every outside intrusion, I might have fallen for it, unnoticed. I see the art tops out at only the equivalent of the nascent soul realm, and frown in confusion. But as I read on, I find the ways it handles chi and blood are exquisite beyond anything I expected. My eyes light up. These unique methods can be folded whole into the cultivation system I am about to pioneer. Used as a foundation, they could even build an entirely new chi and blood martial arts system. That branch would focus on body refining, pushing the physical body to its limit, with enormous potential. Even so, it sits a few tiers beneath the grand martial system I have in mind. If I can truly bring my envisioned system to life, immortal ascension becomes a simple errand. Married to a system of my own making, it would be enough to overturn the operating rules of the entire world. I would drag those lofty cultivators and privileged clans down off their high horses and into the mud. Even the ancient immortal cultivation system might be phased out for good. I am not naive about it, though. An act that brazen would trigger a monstrous backlash. The immortal cultivation system has struck roots over millions of years, and the men with everything to lose will never let go without a fight. It would likely take a world-shaking, brutal struggle before any winner emerged. Strangely, the thought makes my blood boil rather than cool. There was a line I carried out of my old world. Struggling against heaven is boundless joy, it went, and struggling against earth, and struggling against men, all boundless joy. Opening a new world takes the nerve to trample the old shackles underfoot. And now I mean to go to war with all those lofty fellows and teach them that even an ant can shake the heavens. I gather my thoughts, grip the blood demon art, and blur off into the distance as an after-image. On an open stretch of wasteland, I use my spiritual energy to gouge a deep pit. I drop the blood-lit book into it and sweep my arm to bury it under the soil. Since I cannot destroy the thing, I tell it, I will seal it here forever, and it will never crawl out to harm anyone again. Once I am sure it lies buried, I go straight back to the Blackwind Fortress. I deal with the last of the corpses, comb the compound, and sweep every undamaged bit of property into my bag before shooting down the mountain like a loosed arrow. Not far along, I spot Little Yellow crouched in the grass, peering nervously up the slope. I laugh and ask if he was worried about me, because wiping out a few mountain bandits is hardly worth mentioning. The laugh yanks at my internal injuries, though, and my face goes pale with the pain. It seems I had better find somewhere to heal first. Then, once I have cultivated the 5 elements chi refining technique to its 4th version, I can prepare my charge at the Foundation Establishment realm. I scoop Little Yellow up, call on my movement technique, and leap off toward Chongsan Town. In Chongsan Town at the Jisei Medical Clinic, I lie on a rocking chair with my eyes lightly shut. I circulate my technique and breathe to cultivate, while in my mind I deduce and refine the method further. Beside the chair, Little Yellow sprawls on the floor, belly rising and falling, completely at ease. More than a month has slipped by since I leveled the Blackwind Fortress. I opened this clinic for 2 reasons. First, I needed a place to hole up and heal. Second, I wanted to collect data on human meridians, chi, and blood through the work of treating patients. My youthful face makes me a hard sell as a physician. Most of the townsfolk decide I am not to be trusted, and few of them ever come knocking. That suits me fine. If someone shows up, I treat them with everything I have. If no one does, I simply nurse my own wounds. I have not been idle this month, either. I have perfected both the moon-swallowing art and the star-swallowing art. The first draws in the power of the moon, the second takes in the power of the stars. And I got there so fast only because the sun-swallowing art laid such a solid foundation. Sunlight runs far more violent than moonlight or starlight. And with all the data from converting solar energy already in hand, the 2 new arts came together quickly. Of course, the pace also owes a great deal to how selflessly the villains of Chongsan Town volunteered as test subjects. Every night I go out and round up the town's worst to run my arts on. Good people can be hard to find in this world, but men steeped in every kind of evil are everywhere you look. After my quiet intervention, the whole atmosphere of Chongsan Town improved sharply. Every street and alley now trades stories about some great hero who punishes the wicked and rewards the good. My eyes snap open with joy, and I call for Little Yellow to shut the door, because I am going into seclusion to cultivate. Before the words finish, he flips nimbly to his feet, tail wagging. He scurries over in a few steps and hauls the clinic's main door shut. The whole sequence so smooth it is obvious he has done it many times. I nod, satisfied. Then I walk through the ornamental gate and sit cross-legged at the center of the bluestone courtyard, hands sealed on my knees, back straight as a green pine. The air around me slowly goes still. What I mean to cultivate today is the 5 elements chi refining technique, in its 5th version, which I only just finished deducing. I had originally planned to cultivate the 4th version once my injuries closed, but the moon-swallowing art and star-swallowing art came together so fast that I changed course. I used the 4th version as a base, folded in the absorption of moonlight and starlight, and produced the 5th. The new technique speeds the refining of heaven and earth spiritual chi. It also pulls in sunlight, moonlight, and starlight as cultivation fuel. Still, knowledge off the page always feels thin, and the real behavior of a technique only reveals itself in the doing. I hold my breath, press my tongue to the roof of my mouth, and cast off every stray thought. As a wisp of warmth rises from my dantian, I set the 5th version in motion. 5-colored spiritual power slides out like 5 spirit snakes, running the technique's predetermined path through all 129,600 acupoints in my body. The moment the power completes its circuit and returns, my whole frame shudders. A brilliant five-colored divine light bursts from my skin. Heaven and earth spiritual chi surges in like the tide, and the midday sun thickens into a physical golden glow that swarms toward me. The scorching solar energy floods my body and sets me burning as though I have fallen into a furnace, but the five-colored power seizes it at once. Through the five elements' mutual generation and restriction, and the turning of yin and yang, the raw fire is refined into peaceful spiritual power that pours back into my dantian. From high noon until deep into the night, I stay locked in cultivation. When darkness comes, moonlight like white silk and starlight like scattered silver descend and rush into me. My body wears a gown of five-colored light, an outer veil of moonlight, and pinpricks of starlight glittering through the haze. So I must look like an immortal come down to the mortal world. Then the brilliance of stars and moon recedes like an ebbing tide, all of it drawn back into me. I open my eyes, plant my hands on my hips, and laugh that this Taoist has done it. With an achievement like this, who else could it be but me? Looking back, thousands of technique trials and better than 10,000 rounds of deduction have finally paid off. I did not just fold the three energies of sun, moon, and stars into my cultivation technique. I discovered to my delight that cultivating this way beats leaning on the spiritual chi of the heavenly revelation sect by a wide margin. The power of sun, moon, and stars is pure and majestic, and the spiritual power tempered from it comes out finer and more solid. And the three hang inexhaustibly in the sky overhead. There is no longer any need, as the immortal sects insist, to manufacture spiritual chi by squeezing disciples dry on the spiritual chi conversion formations. Nothing says corporate quite like billing your own labor force for the air they breathe. Better still, the fifth version no longer needs deliberate guidance. It circulates through my meridians on its own, endlessly. Even standing under the sun and doing nothing, I feel the spiritual power inside me quietly thickening. Passive cultivation cannot match focused work, of course, but a man is not made of iron, and no one can stay clenched in meditation around the clock. Over enough time, the passive gains add up to something considerable. This success matters far beyond my own longevity. It solves the very first great problem standing between me and overturning this world. Once sun, moon, and stars become bottomless wells of cultivation energy, the shackle of scarce power simply breaks. Build a complete cultivation hierarchy and system on top of that, and the rules of this world get rewritten. Perfect equality for everyone is probably impossible, but at the least, ordinary people could be handed the power to resist the boot on their necks. The benefits to me run richer than that, naturally, because who pours out this much effort for nothing at all? I have a solid plan for the cultivation system, and I feel I can cobble it together. The system itself is another matter. Given my current means, the best I can manage is a bargain bin dollar store knockoff. I draw a deep breath and shelve the thought, because the truly urgent business is breaking through to foundation establishment and settling my lifespan. Seeing little Yellow circling my feet with his tail going, I grin and tell him I am taking him out for a proper feast today. Late that night, the lamps of Cheongsan Town have gone dark, and only the entertainment quarter still hums. I stand looking at the crimson gauze lanterns swaying over the lintel of the Drunken Spring Pavilion, swallow once, and finally step across the threshold. I have always been curious about this old den of indulgence. I only want to look at what such a house of romance is truly like, not for pleasure and not for any romance, just to eat a meal and hear some music. An hour later, I come back out with Little Yellow, and cannot help sighing that the rich really do know how to live. Their days are almost obscenely extravagant. Inside, while singers and dancers performed, someone kneaded my shoulders and delicacies were fed straight to my mouth. Even a dog like Little Yellow got the royal treatment. I glanced down at him, eyes still narrowed as if savoring the memory, and a faint sense of foreboding rises in me. 2 months later, I stand looking at the energy storage device in front of me with a satisfied smile. Drawing on the sun-swallowing art and the idea of yin and yang rotation, after hundreds of deductions and trials, I finally worked out an energy conversion formation. It turns solar energy, lunar essence, and starlight into gentle, usable energy. Then, I refined that formation down into the energy storage device before me. I set it under the sun, and the solar energy of heaven and earth drifts toward it, flowing in along the Tao patterns carved on its surface. An hour on, I pick the device up and circulate my technique to draw its energy out. A current gentler than raw sunlight, yet more explosive than ordinary spiritual chi, floods in and refines cleanly. I stroke my chin and tell myself it is an initial success, usable now, though I will keep improving it. The converted solar energy comes out gentler and easier to swallow, while holding on to its original purity. I need several more of these devices prepared as fuel for my foundation establishment breakthrough. If I run short of energy at the critical moment, I will be in real trouble. As it stands, I have polished my chi refining cultivation to its absolute ceiling, and I can break through whenever I choose. 7 days later, I sit cross-legged at the center of the courtyard. My last 20 mid-grade spirit stones and 100 charged energy storage devices lie arranged at my side. Little Yellow stands guard nearby, cautious as a sworn protector, and the morning sun spills over me as I prepare to charge the Foundation Establishment realm. Even well supplied, I feel a knot of nerves. Foundation Establishment concerns a man's very life and leaves no room for the smallest slip. I draw a deep breath, calm my mind, close my eyes, and begin circulating the Foundation Establishment cultivation technique I obtained from the Heavenly Revelation sect. I have no intention of altering this one because tampering with it now would be far too dangerous. If the breakthrough fails, every bit of effort washes down the drain. For now, I want only a smooth crossing. Once Foundation Establishment is done, I will build my own technique to match the system taking shape in my head. The aura around me erupts, and 5 brilliant divine lights coil like flood dragons and wrap my whole body. Heaven and earth spiritual chi is dragged in as if by an unseen force, roaring into me as a torrent. But the thin outside spiritual chi cannot come close to satisfying the breakthrough, and my body devours energy like a parched desert. I sweep my palms, and the 20 mid-grade spirit stones float up at once. Their spiritual chi is extracted and poured whole into my dantian, gone in a blink. Then I take up the energy storage devices and drain them all in one go. As the last device empties, a faint ethereal chime sounds. The 5-colored divine light swells 10 feet and snaps back like a receding wave. I open my eyes with the peculiar spiritual charm of the Foundation Establishment realm flowing in my pupils. At last, I have crossed over. I reach out and feel my own body, sensing it brimming with vitality again. However young I looked on the outside before, my insides had long since gone aged and decrepit. Now that is entirely reversed. Foundation Establishment power runs through my meridians, and my whole frame is flush with life. I cannot hold in the laugh. I have won myself a new life and borrowed another 150 years from the heavens. No longer must I live each day in dread of the moment my lifespan runs dry. These years have been too hard. Finally, I can go and make my ideas real, and let this world witness the shock coming out of another one. Seeing his master awake, Little Yellow barks without pause, tail thrashing. He bounds around me and rubs his head against my trouser legs in pure delight. I pat his head and tell him to step aside for a while, since I still need to stabilize my cultivation. Then I close my eyes and circulate my technique to settle the realm. As I examine the state of my body, though, I cannot help a sigh. The breakthrough succeeded, yet my strength barely climbed. The Heavenly Revelation sect's Foundation Establishment method simply cannot unlock the potential of all my acupoints. That makes creating my own system and technique an urgent matter I dare not put off. The crossing did more than lift my realm one step all the same. My control over the space-time realm jumped to 10%, and my deduction and calculation power surged with it. If my old deduction was a bicycle, I am now riding an electric scooter. That leaves me far more confident about building my own system. Better yet, paired with the latest cheat brain, my deduction could multiply more than tenfold. The thing drinks energy at a frightening rate, but I have already made energy storage devices, so a little consumption means nothing to me. The catch is that my current storage devices and cheat brain are both made from ordinary refined iron. Better materials would push both far past their present limits. The most important piece is a new idea entirely. I mean to fuse the two items into the system itself. Then the system's own operating energy is covered, and it works as storage device and cheat brain at once, using energy as its internal currency. That neatly solves the problem of system currency. It also lets the host spend the system's energy to cultivate. Best of all, the system can drink in the energy of heaven and earth on its own and stockpile it, with the surplus becoming my personal reserve. That is endlessly convenient for cultivation and for topping myself off during deductions, and it costs the host nothing while I gain a free storage device. And cheat brain. The road to any of that is choked with thorns, and none of it happens overnight. If I could weave the system from the power of laws, all those elegant functions would fall into place on their own. But wanting to command laws at my current strength is a pipe dream. So out of necessity, I have also considered using mental energy in place of laws. Down that road, though, the system's functions would shrink badly, and I might end up with nothing more than a budget version. I let out a long sigh. A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, and this has to be eaten one bite at a time. Rushing serves nothing, so I will simply endure and build the cultivation system first. The immediate priority is mass-producing energy storage devices and cheap brains, since more calculation power speeds the deduction and enough energy is the foundation of cultivation. Neither can be spared. Even so, I will not refine too many. It eats time. These versions still have plenty of room to grow, and the updates will come fast, so there is no sense pouring effort into what I am about to replace. 3 months later, I stand before 100 cheap brains laid out in neat rows, unable to hide how excited I am. I use my divine sense to lace them together and feed spiritual energy into the array. My deduction and calculation power surges tenfold on the spot, and techniques that used to swallow enormous stretches of time now resolve in a blink. These cheap brains are genuinely powerful, but their appetite for energy is terrifying. I carry spiritual power in all of my acupoints, yet even at full output I cannot sustain the deduction for more than a day. After that, if danger came, I would have no way to protect myself. For a man as short on any sense of security as I am, that risk is far too steep, so I settle on a rule at once. I will run the array at full power, for 10 hours a day at most, then shut the cheap brains down to recover my spiritual energy. Even under that limit, my progress on the system's deduction will race ahead. Beyond that, I plan to use the array to comprehend the law of time and the law of space woven into my space-time realm. The reasoning is simple. The sharpest-minded golden core cultivators in this world can already grasp a sliver of the great Tao laws. With my own comprehension backed by the cheap brains, there is real hope of touching the laws of time and space. Even the barest surface understanding would be an enormous gain, since these two supreme laws are the keys to the technique I mean to build. With that, I begin deducing the cultivation system, taking shape in my mind. Its core is a 4-in-1 of essence: Qi, spirit, and Tao. Essence is the physical body. Qi is the true force, won through cultivation. Spirit is the soul or divine soul, and Tao is the world great Tao a person chooses. When the four merge into a single whole, the human body becomes like a self-contained little world, able to sustain itself. After that, a cultivator need only keep expanding the Tao and comprehending laws. That naturally lifts essence, Qi, and spirit together, without the grind of training each one apart. The body's small world grows like a sapling as the Tao is perfected, transforming on every front. Reaching that transcendent 4-in-1 realm cannot be forced in a day. It has to be walked step by step. I plan to begin with the fusion of essence and Qi, move on to the fusion of Qi and Tao, and finally reach the fusion of spirit and Tao. Through those stages, the four gradually blend into one, indistinguishable from each other, until the 4-in-1 is complete. In that state, a man's combat power becomes immense. Even a careless strike lands as a unified blow of essence, Qi, spirit, and Tao, all at once. The first realm of the system is the body-tempering realm. It is mainly about drilling the physical body and replenishing essence and Qi. It divides into 6 levels: muscle refining, skin refining, tendon transformation, bone forging, internal strengthening of the 5 viscera and 6 bowels, and blood Qi. Cultivated to its end, the body itself becomes a heaven and earth furnace. It uses the flesh as a crucible to smelt the energy of the world, letting energy in but never out, and doubling the cultivation speed. The second realm is the innate realm, where a practitioner drives blood Qi through the Renandu meridians to condense innate true Qi. The third is the divine sea realm, the same tier as foundation establishment. There true Qi turns to liquid, and one must fix the future direction of one's great Tao and comprehend a concept or a sliver of law aligned with it. These first 3 realms together achieve the initial fusion of essence and Qi. The fourth realm is the Tao seed realm, the equal of the golden core. Here a practitioner fuses the concept or law he has comprehended with his true force to nurture a Tao seed inside the Dantian. When that Tao seed forms, the fusion of Qi and Tao is achieved. In essence, Qi and Tao knit their first true connection. Because the whole system turns on nurturing a Tao seed, I name it the Tao Seed Martial Arts Cultivation System. I open my eyes wearily, half exasperated. I truly did not expect these 100 cheat brains to devour my spiritual energy like madmen and drag my mental energy nearly to its limit besides. Then the exhaustion gives way to excitement, since the haul is enormous. In just 10 hours, I finished the first 4 stages of the system and deduced its cultivation technique, the martial scripture. I also locked in my own road. Cultivate the world great Tao, condense my Tao seed into a world seed, then open a whole new world and craft a universe. That road is destined to be thick with thorns. Reaching the goal means mastering the two core laws of time and space, and comprehending a great many more besides. Relying on my strength alone, who knows how many years it would take. Building a system to assist the work has clearly become a pressing matter. I clench my fists, a determined light flaring in my eyes. Only by gathering the wisdom of every living being can I comprehend the great Tao laws faster. Otherwise, comprehending the Tao by myself might drag on until the end of time. The moment the thought lands, I let it go, calm my mind, and sink into meditation to recover the energy I spent. Time runs on, and 2 years pass in a blink. On sheer stubbornness and comprehension, I keep refining the Tao Seed martial arts cultivation system and the martial scripture. I push my cultivation to the peak of the divine sea realm. With the cheap brains behind me, I spend days and nights unraveling the mysteries of the space-time realm. At last, I grasp a sliver of both the law of time and the law of space. Along the way, I also work out the 5 elements generation and restraint, and the path of yin and yang rotation, catching a sliver of each. On that footing, I even smelt the embryonic form of my world great Tao. My cultivation road is racing forward, but one thing gnaws at me until I am genuinely irritable. That is Little Yellow, who has grown up crooked. He has been at my side since he was a pup, and over these years he has put away a great deal of the rare medicinal herbs stored in the clinic. Now and then, I would use true force to refine his bones and muscles and condition his frame. His body is sturdy as a young calf now, and he has awakened intelligence. But the whole situation has spun clean out of my control, because who could have guessed this dog would develop a special fondness for the brothel? When I first heard it, I refused to believe it. Then I walked into the brothel and nearly blew apart on the spot. There lay Little Yellow on a soft cushion, letting lovely women knead him and feed delicacies into his mouth, while he watched the dancing girl's sleeves float past. I flew into a rage. I snapped that this rotten dog knows how to enjoy himself even better than I do. And on my money. I strode forward, ignoring every stunned stare in the room, and hauled him up by the scruff. With a false smile, I told him his skills have clearly improved, that he lives freer than his own master. He kicked his legs wildly in the air, yet kept wagging his tail to look friendly, his barks all fawning apology. My face stayed cold as I asked how he would like a pack of female dogs to keep him company. Before I finished, he shook his head hard and whimpered in panic. Under the strange looks of the crowd, I carried the embarrassing creature out the door. How humiliating. I have not been this ashamed across 2 whole lifetimes. I glared at the curled-up ball of him and threatened through my teeth that if he ran to the brothel again, I would string him up and whip him. He would not see a single copper coin from then on, I swore. Just picturing a dog frequenting a brothel makes my scalp crawl. Outsiders who do not know better will take me for some old lecher, since even the dog I raised turned out this lustful. In fact, I set foot in that place exactly once, for a meal, and left in a hurry. Now this ridiculous scene of his is going to bury my good name. Carrying Little Yellow toward the clinic, I cut through the town center and run straight into a dense, dark crowd. At least 1,000 people are packed so tight they choke the street. Every face is fevered, and the whole mass keeps shouting up at someone to judge whether they have the talent to cultivate. I turn toward the noise and find a cultivator in a navy blue Taoist robe floating in the air at the crowd's heart. My brow knits because this man is plainly no disciple of the Heavenly Revelation sect. The Jinn state sits inside the Heavenly Revelation sect sphere, so recruiting disciples here without leave is a naked provocation. I have no idea where this loose cultivator crawled out of, but publicly testing the talent of mortals like this is arrogance at its peak. I shake my head, decide it is none of my business, and turn back toward the clinic. Just then a voice calls out for the mortal carrying the dog to stop, because this immortal master has business with him. It takes me a beat to register that he means me. I turn with a confused face and narrow my eyes at the immortal master drifting over. Then, I think it through fast. What could this cultivator want with me? And could he possibly have seen that I carry spiritual root aptitude? That does not add up. His aura shows he only just scraped into the golden core realm, and it wobbles as if his cultivation were force-fed by some special means. With cultivation that thin, he should not be able to read my aptitude at all. I have never heard of anyone in the Heavenly Revelation sect owning such an ability. On top of that, my aura is fully restrained, so I look like any ordinary man on the street. Before I can untangle it, he has floated close, gazing down as if I were an ant beneath his notice. He tells me the little dog carries real spirituality, and orders me to hand it over at once. My eyes go cold immediately, because now I understand. He has seen that Little Yellow awakened intelligence, and he means to seize him. Watching the greed flicker in his eyes, I know this will not end quietly. So I say on purpose that this is only a common mutt I keep at home. Nothing special about it. and offer to help him buy a fine dog instead. He barks at me to stop the nonsense that he wants the dog in my hands and wants it now. His greedy stare stays fixed on Little Yellow, as though he already owns him. The crowd erupts into a chorus of fawning. Someone cries what a blessing it is that the immortal master fancies my dog. Someone offers to fetch 100 dogs in its place. One man calls me Dr. Yu and promises 10 pieces of silver to buy the dog, so he can present it to the immortal master himself. Little Yellow feels the malice bearing down on him and hears the mob eager to sell him off. He starts barking wildly, hackles up, teeth bared at the immortal master. I glare at the ones shouting for me to give up my dog and note them down in my head. How did I overlook these lowlifes when I was out hunting for technique testers? Into the little book they go, and when I need them, they can all make a contribution. I reach out and gently pat Little Yellow's head to soothe him. Then I plaster on a smile and tell the immortal master that since he loves Little Yellow this much, how could I possibly refuse? But could the immortal master also check whether I have cultivation talent? Since I too would love to fly and live forever like him. Holding the dog, I step forward a few paces and make as if to hand him over. Just as the immortal master reaches out, all smiles and arrogance, to take him, I move like lightning. I clamp down on his wrist and wrench it toward me while flinging Little Yellow far clear. My free right fist condenses a savage force that could split the sky, and it hammers toward his head with a thunderbolt's speed. Terror washes over the immortal master's face. He pumps spiritual chi to shake my grip, but my hand is an iron vice he cannot pry loose. He scrambles to throw up a spiritual chi shield and strike back, yet my ambush is simply too fast to answer. The fist drives home in an instant. His head bursts apart, flesh and blood spraying, warm droplets flecking the stunned onlookers, and the roaring street drops into a deathly hush. A glass cannon mage lets a martial artist close the distance. If he does not die, then who does? Calm as ever, I crouch and search the corpse with practiced hands. I draw out 2 books, the Thick Earth Technique and the Spirit-Seizing Great Method, and sweep every scrap of gold and silver into my robe. Then I hook my fingers into a claw, pierced his dantian, and gouge out a golden core the size of a soybean. I wipe the blood from my fingertips on his own clothes, unhurried, and rise to look at the silent crowd. They flinch as one, staggering 3 steps back in unison, eyes wide with fear and disbelief. I offer them a harmless smile and tell them they all saw it. This immortal master was a fraud an ordinary man like me could kill with a single punch, so do not be taken in again. Then I turn and walk toward the clinic. Behind me, the hush finally cracks into whispers. Someone marvels that an immortal master could be killed just like that. Another decides he must have been a fake, or one punch could never have done it. More than a few admit they never dreamed Dr. Yu was this strong. Back at the clinic, I bar the door and open the Thick Earth Technique to study it. It is an Earth attribute cultivation technique that runs up to the Golden Core realm. Several of its core formation methods can be lifted out and folded into the martial scripture I practice, to serve for condensing a Tao seed and perfecting the Tao seed realm. I set it aside and pick up the Spirit-Seizing Great Method. After only a few pages, surprise crosses my face. By the time I finish the whole secret manual, it all comes clear. The Immortal Master's grand recruitment drive in Shungsan Town was never anything but a front. On the surface, he gathered disciples, but under it he used the spiritual root testing to quietly hunt for youths of outstanding aptitude. His real aim was to strip out and seize their spiritual roots. No wonder his aura felt so wrong. He clawed his way into the Golden Core realm by tearing the Earth's spiritual roots out of others with this very method. A spiritual root is meant to be an inborn talent, a person's affinity for the various attributes of spiritual chi, invisible and intangible. Yet this spirit-seizing great method can forcibly rip one loose from its owner, which is a genuine stroke of genius. The methods are far too cruel, of course. Anyone whose root is seized dies only after suffering the pain of 1,000 cuts. But the idea itself is staggering, and whoever created it was without doubt a genius. I even catch myself wishing I could sit down with that person and trade thoughts on the nature of spiritual roots. More to the point, this technique hands me a crucial spark of inspiration. Carried through, it could shrink the threat and pressure the cultivation sects hold over me. Realized fully, it would rewrite the rules of the whole cultivation world, and a brand new era might begin. The inspiration is to devise a method for refining a heavenly spiritual root outright. Rather than tearing spiritual roots from other people, I would refine them directly from materials, and they could even be implanted easily into the body. Put an item like that up for sale in the system store, and I suspect the entire cultivation world would go mad scrambling to buy. That would gut the resistance the system meets as it spreads, and might even pull cultivators into the system's own camp. To break a powerful group, the The fastest road is to rot it from the inside. Cultivators of mediocre aptitude are already chained by their talent and dream of nothing but changing it. The instant they learn there is a way, they will flock to it. Even those blessed with fine talent have friends, family, or disciples of poor aptitude or none at all. For the sake of those people, they would not refuse to buy a heavenly spiritual root either. On its face, the offering strengthens the cultivation forces, but underneath it splits them. Once artificial heavenly spiritual roots appear, the cultivation groups are bound to fracture. Those born with a heavenly spiritual root will look down on cultivators who leaned on an outside force to have one implanted. That contempt breeds factional feuds and internal strife, so they can never unite to crush the system's spread. They are powerless to stop the growth of the Tao Seed martial arts cultivation system. So the moment I can truly refine a heavenly spiritual root, the system's promotion loses countless headaches. Developing the method is about as easy as climbing into the sky. But with my deduction ability, I believe I still have a shot. The breakthrough thought arrives all at once. If I treat the spiritual root as an organ inside the body and refine it on that basis, the difficulty drops sharply. Ordinary cultivators worship the spiritual root as a heaven-sent sacred thing and have never once dreamed of breaking the mold. But suppose I borrow the mindset of forging a magical artifact. I could refine heaven and earth spiritual materials into special organs suited to a mortal's body, then implant them. In the end, a spiritual root is only a medium for communicating with the heaven and earth spiritual chi. As long as attribute resonance is achieved, why should I be shackled to its original form? The thought sets me alight, and I can barely hold still as I drop cross-legged onto the futon. Following the method laid out in the spirit-seizing great method, I run my divine sense inward to sense the state of my own spiritual roots. In that void, I feel the 5 elements spiritual roots woven into a web. The sharpness of metal, the vitality of wood, the gentleness of water, the fierceness of fire, and the heaviness of earth all resolve into 5 colored clusters of light, lying dormant deep within me. I hold my breath, pour my whole attention into that strange sensation, and try to comprehend how a spiritual root operates. After a long while, I open my eyes and let out a heavy breath. The mystery of the spiritual root runs far past anything I imagined. What looks like airy talent is in truth in harmony with the exquisite laws that govern heaven and earth. The exploration settles it in my heart. Give me enough time to study this, and I will absolutely refine a heavenly spiritual root of my own. Once the excitement cools, though, I sober quickly. A matter this tangled cannot be rushed. It will demand endless deduction and a mountain of experiments, nothing to be finished in a short span. Weighing it all, I quietly resolve that for now the more important thing is breaking through to the Tao Seed realm. 3 days later, I take Little Yellow and a heavy load of energy storage devices and leave Chengzan town for the depths of the mountains. Before long, we reach the valley I scouted earlier. I lean down to stroke Little Yellow's fluffy fur, my expression solemn, and tell him I need to seclude myself here to break through my realm. He should stay outside the valley and keep watch. He barks, wags his tail, nods to show he understands, and trots back out. Once his shape vanishes at the valley mouth, I weave hand seals and activate the 5 elements defense formation I set here long ago. The patterns blaze with 5-colored light, and layer upon layer of barrier ripples, out to swallow the whole valley. I breathe out slowly, walk to a flat patch, and settle onto the waiting futon. My aura steadies as I gather my mind for what comes. The Tao Seed realm, the equal of the Golden Core, is where a cultivator sets the future course of his own Tao. It asks him to fuse the great Tao laws or concept he has comprehended with the true force in his body. He condenses them into a Tao seed and nurtures that seed to maturity, thereby achieving the union of Tao and Qi. Because I have cultivated all 129,600 acupoints, I intend to condense that many Tao seeds, while everyone else condenses only one. I draw a deep breath, calm my mind, and drive my technique to raise a heaven and earth furnace inside my Dantian out of true force. Heaven and earth are the furnace, creation the craftsman, yin and yang the charcoal, and the world great Tao and true force the bronze. With them I forge the Tao seed that is a world seed. I feed true force into the furnace, and cast the embryonic world great Tao down into it. The furnace roars to life as the two fuse violently in the heat. They intertwine and steep through each other, condensing into a chaos-colored world seed that seems to hold endless time and space, and the faint ultimate truths of the great Tao. The true force in my Dantian pours in like a tide, transforming into chaos energy. When 1% of my total true force is spent, the world seed drinks its fill and blazes with dazzling great Tao light. the outline of a chaos world dimly taking shape within. Seeing the world seed condense successfully, I dispersed the furnace at once, unable to hide my joy that this Taoist has scored his first success in the Great Tao. But my brow furrows immediately. The energy that single world seed demanded was staggering. It is a good thing I planned ahead and did not try to condense the seeds in all my acupoints at once, or I would have been wrung dry in an instant. I gather myself, snatch up an energy storage device, and drain every drop. Once my reserves recover, I set to condensing the world seeds for my middle Dantian. One after another, they take shape. The moment the last one forms, all 129,600 world seeds burst with chaos light at once. Chaos-colored true force flows between them, surging along my meridians to connect every seed in a blink. My whole body erupts in blinding chaos light, and a vast chaos-colored heaven and earth furnace rises outside my flesh, swallowing and spitting heaven and earth. Spiritual chi gathers like a tornado, and the golden rays of the daytime sun, the clear moonlight of night, and the power of the stars are all pulled inside. There the furnace's flames refine the myriad energies into pure true force. That true force races through me, and each circuit falls like a heavy hammer, forging my meridians, bones, and muscles again and again. Inside the furnace, a chaos-colored light cocoon hovers, flaring with brilliance and now and then revealing great Tao runes. That cocoon is me, undergoing transformation and sublimation. After a long time, a sound like the birth of the world rings out. The cocoon shatters and waves of chaos energy roll outward in every direction. I hang cross-legged in the void, radiating Tao rhythm. As I open my eyes, the shadow of a chaos world moves within them, and my gaze, laden with endless pressure, pierces the firmament. The magnificent furnace collapses into motes of starlight and vanishes without a trace. Majestic power surges through me like a boundless galaxy, and I tip my head back and loose a long roar that shakes the wilderness and startles the birds and beasts from the forests. When at last the roar dies against the clouds, I slowly draw my aura back in. Once my emotions settle, I turn my divine sense on the world seed. Inside it, chaos chi churns like a small chaotic world. Set beside a true chaotic world, though, it falls hopelessly short in both the level of its laws and its scale. No comparison at all. While I study it, I turn over what the Tao seed realm asks of me next. The world seed has condensed and taken form, but it is fragile as a seedling just pushing through soil, in desperate need of nourishment. The way to feed it is to keep comprehending great Tao laws and weaving them in, so that it grows strong. For now, I hold only a shallow grasp of the laws of time, space, yin and yang, and the 5 elements. Once my cultivation steadies, I mean to fold those in first. The seed already carries the laws of time and space, but only as derivatives of the world great Tao, so reintegrating them will deepen their strength. Beyond that, I need to comprehend far more laws and keep folding them in. Every great Tao law brings the seed nearer to perfection and lifts its ceiling. If I could comprehend the 3,000 great Tao laws and integrate them all, its potential would be immense, though the process would swallow ages and the difficulty runs brutally high. I sink my mind into my sea of consciousness again and find, to my surprise, that my control over the space-time realm has climbed to 15%. My calculation power has jumped as well. That gives me real confidence about comprehending more laws to come. I form the seals, withdraw the defensive formation, and step out. Little Yellow rushes over the instant it drops, wagging and circling me and barking with abandon. I realize I've actually been in seclusion 3 months, and marvel that time moves so fast, since this is the longest stretch I have ever sat. Using my divine sense to catch the ripples of his soul, I understand what he means and let a mischievous smile surface. I ask whether, during my 3 months away, he has fallen behind on his lessons, because I am about to give him a proper test. His tail wilts at once and his head droops, and the sight of him so glum makes me laugh out loud. Ever since I discovered Little Yellow had grown a mind, I began teaching him to read and write. After learning this little fellow liked slipping off to brothels, I deliberately doubled his homework to force his focus. Seeing him this pitiful now, my heart softens. I rub his drooping ears and tell him to forget it, since guarding outside the valley through 3 months of wind and weather was hard on him. I will let him off this once, but if there is any more slacking, I let the threat hang. The instant his head snaps up and his ears prick, I cannot help laughing that the homework doubles again, and it will not be so easy to pass next time. Then I look off toward Shengzan town, robes stirring in the wind, and tell him we are heading back to the clinic. Before the words fade, I shoot into the air like a loosed arrow. Little Yellow shakes out his fur and kicks off into a yellow blur at my heels, until the two of us vanish among the peaks. 3 more months slide past. Since stepping into the Tao Seed realm, I first studied the realm, then wove every law I had already comprehended into the World Seed. Even with the cheat brain helping, in 3 months I managed to comprehend no more than a trace of the law of wind. I turned my gaze inward. Inside each one of my acupoints, a chaos-colored world seed drifts slowly. Its surface is engraved with the law patterns of time, space, yin and yang, the 5 elements, and wind, like a great Tao map inscribed with the ultimate truths of heaven and earth. The patterns catch one another's light and hum with the rhythm of the Tao. Comprehending great Tao laws is simply too hard when a full 3 months bought me only a trace of the law of wind. At this rate, even 500 years of a Tao seed realm lifespan could never comprehend all 3,000 great Taos. And if I refuse to wait and force my way to the next realm instead, the world seed goes unnourished and its potential is squandered, which I genuinely cannot stomach. Even after comprehending the 3,000, I would still have to keep perfecting and strengthening every one of those great Tao laws. That is another vast ocean of time. I sigh and pace with a frown, and then my eyes light up. I need to accelerate the system's development. Leaning on myself alone to comprehend laws is far too slow. Only by gathering the wisdom of all living beings can I pick up speed, and using the system to collect the world's ancient texts might even let me comprehend more laws straight out of books. The trouble is that a system is best woven from laws, and I command far too few to construct one. For now, I can only lean on soul power and the shallow scraps of law I have grasped to weave it. That means the functions will come out crude, a bargain bin knockoff of the real thing. Another problem nags at me too. Communication has to be solved or the system is a standalone unit and utterly useless. I can hardly go collecting data in person trip after trip, which is plainly unrealistic. If only I could comprehend the law of karma, then through karmic threads I could speak across any distance at all. Making the system is not enough on its own either. I also have to create a spread of cultivation techniques, or the thing is an empty shell. Because the system is meant for everyone, I may as well adapt the phonics and literacy primers from my past life into a version that fits this world. Then hosts learn to read straight through the system. The common people are enlightened quickly, and cultivation secret manuals become easier for them to grasp. Once they can cultivate, perhaps they will stir some life back into this stagnant world. I can also hand down tasks through the system to steer them. Most important of all is raising their cultivation fast, because only when they climb high enough can they reach more secret manuals and comprehend great Tao laws. And all of that flows back to help me. I rub my aching head. What a headache. There is just too much to do. I decide to build the system first and optimize it slowly afterward. When I look up, I find Little Yellow bouncing around the yard chasing butterflies. I call him over, promising something good, and his ears shoot up as he barrels across on all fours, tail a blur, bright eyes fixed on me and brimming with hope. I smile and pull out 3 books, stuffing all of them into his paws at once. The covers read, 3 years of Divine Sea, 5 years of Tao Seed, real practice exams, then how to be a cultured, moral, high-quality dog, and finally, how to become a model dog. I tell him I put a great deal of effort into organizing these, so he had better study hard and strive to be a model dog of the new era. I will test him in a month, and if he fails, no meat for a month. Little Yellow holds the 3 books blankly, his whole face a study in confusion. I gaze at the system, version 1, floating in my palm, round as a bean and giving off a faint, ethereal shimmer. This little thing is the fruit of 6 months of grinding effort. I wove it meticulously from the power of my soul and the traces of law I command over time, space, and yin and yang. It folds 2 core functions together, the cheat brain and the energy storage device. So it not only drinks in outside energy to keep itself running, but banks whatever is left over. As for that surplus, I split it evenly between myself and the host. That is already generous, since with my abilities I could quietly have hoarded all of it. But greed that naked is simply too ugly to wear. Ordinary people have so few channels for gathering energy. Handing them some to speed their growth pays me back in the long run anyway. The energy the system converts out of spiritual chi, solar power, and stellar power comes through pure and high-grade, yet gentle and easy to absorb, fit for cultivating straight from the source. For the system's core processor, I built on the cheat brain through round after round of upgrades, until it holds even stronger deductive power. That is enough to run the system, and still leave me spare capacity to secretly deduce great Tao laws on the side. The most central feature of all is communication. Right now, the system cannot manage truly distance-blind contact, and its effective range caps at 1,000 kilometers. But I added a base station function. With a system every 1,000 kilometers, a communication net can be strung together through the links between them, breaking the chains of distance. I merged the system into my body, and a line of gold leaf characters surfaces in my mind. It asks whether I want to know the meaning of life and whether I want to become powerful. It announces that the fairness system is at my service and asks me to bind. Fairness is the name I chose for it. I know full well that absolute fairness cannot exist in any world, and that I myself could never deliver it. Even so, I hope the name shapes a fair image for the system, and that the world it touches grows a little fairer. I agree to bind, and a light screen like a computer desktop unfolds in my sea of consciousness. It is plain and simple, carrying only 3 icons: the personal center, the mall, and the forum. The intelligent navigation starts, pale blue points of light drifting between the icons to guide a first-time user through. With a thought, I open the personal center, and my own record lays itself out. My name is Yu Eel of the human race, 151 years old, of no affiliation, my physique a 5-element spiritual root, my realm the Tao seed realm at 5% progress. My cultivation techniques read the martial scripture, the indestructible golden body at its 20th version, and the soul-shifting and spirit-refining great method. My martial skills read the 5 elements palm, 5 elements fist, void-soaring steps, heaven-splitting divine palm, and space-rending sword technique. My spells read the fire dragon technique, earth escape technique, and immobilization technique. My divine abilities none. My energy points 0. My system notifications 0. All of it is gathered through soul wave detection and investigative spells scanning the body, one of the system's basic functions. It lets a host see his own condition clearly, above all the progress of his cultivation realm, so he can track where he stands and keep his drive to cultivate alive. Next, I open the mall, and a dense field of cultivation techniques and books fills my eyes. At the front crowd, the body forging foundation establishment method, the old farmer's art, the phonetic literacy primer, the martial scripture, and the 9 yang heaven burning art. Among them, the first 3 are free benefits that cost no energy points at all. The body forging foundation establishment method tempers the body and solidifies the foundation, and cultivated fully, it carries a person through to the innate realm. The old farmer's art takes a stranger road. It marries the laboring movements of commoners to martial arts, so that a day of ordinary work doubles as cultivation. That matters because most people in this world are ordinary commoners, and the art exists so that they too can find time to train. The most miraculous thing about those two is that the more people cultivate them, the faster the cultivation runs, and they never raise a person's appetite. Instead of burning food, they draw external energy to replenish what cultivation spends, so the poorest commoner is no longer barred from the path by an empty stomach. The phonetic literacy primer works through soul transmission, letting a host learn to read and write in an instant, and skip the whole grind of study. The martial scripture, the 9 yang heaven burning art, and the rest are all techniques of the Tao Seed martial arts system. Everyone able to drink in the power of sun, moon, and stars. The martial scripture carries no attribute restriction, while the likes of the 9 yang heaven burning art are sorted by attribute. Their contents run plain and direct, with no hidden codes or riddling metaphors, so anyone can learn them. Everything past the free items has to be bought with energy points. Private handing around of the paid manuals is strictly forbidden, since anyone caught at it gets blacklisted by the system and can never bind again. If I comprehend the law of contracts down the line, I could have hosts sign a binding oath at purchase to guarantee nothing leaks. The forum is essentially a stripped-down version of the social feeds I knew back home, able to post only text, no images or video. Truthfully, the whole fairness system is a crude thing, a basic computer paired with the earliest days of the internet. It would be fairer to call version 1 a modified phone than any legendary system, sharing nothing with the miracles of the old tales but the name. It is only version 1, with a great deal of testing left before any real optimization can follow. That means I need to find test subjects, and soon. I exit the system, turn my head, and catch Little Yellow absently thumbing through the 3 years of Divine C, 5 years of Tao Seed practice exams. The other 2 books lie beside him, untouched. My face goes dark. I stride over and cuff his dog head, launching into him. It has been half a year, I tell him, and he has not learned a single one of these books, or passed a single exam. He does nothing but haunt the brothel all day, until everyone in Shengzan town knows the dog I keep loves the place. And though I give him no money, he actually snuck off to take side jobs to earn coin for the brothel, so he lives even better than his own master. He wants to anger me to death. Worst of all, he goes to the brothel by himself and does not even invite me along. I scrub his head roughly with my palm the whole time. Little Yellow barks twice, refusing to take it lying down. His eyes squint at me as a wronged whimper rolls up from his throat, as if he is arguing his case. That only stokes my temper. I jab a finger at his head and demand to know how he still dares talk back and quibble that dogs have no need for such things. How did a thoroughly decent person like me end up raising so indecent a creature? And as for his excuse that he did not invite me for fear I would stop him, well, if he never invites me, how would he ever know whether I would stop him? And who told him to neglect his cultivation when he cannot even speak now? The Tao Seed martial arts cultivation technique I created especially for him has only carried him to the innate realm after all this time, which is truly infuriating. Once the lecture is out of me, my mood brightens considerably. I sweep my arm grandly and announce that my mood is good today, so we are going for a big meal. Little Yellow barks in delight, tail spinning like a propeller as he bounces along behind. At the Yole, the grandest restaurant in Cheongsan town, I work my way through the delicacies of mountain and sea with real relish. Little Yellow, meanwhile, stares blankly at a single lonely bowl of white rice set in front of him. Reading the grievance in his eyes, I grin. This is what comes of not studying, I tell him. And he should not look down on white rice, since plenty of people cannot even afford rice and are reduced to eating dirt. He barks on in his distress, plainly denouncing my wickedness. I smirk that if he thinks I broke my word, he is mistaken. I only ever said I was going for a big meal. I never once said he would get a share. He watches while I eat, and if that is not a big meal, what is? I stand looking over Seo Family Village, a hamlet under Cheongsan Town's jurisdiction. I have decided to run the trial of version 1 out in the countryside. Information moves so poorly here that if anything goes wrong during the test, the situation stays easy to contain. Beyond that, I mean to promote the system in the villages first and expand toward the cities only gradually, encircling the cities from the countryside. That path lets it grow quietly for a while and avoids drawing eyes it cannot yet afford. Version 1 is still far too rudimentary and could be cracked open by the wrong person. The very first host is none other than Seo Songgan of Seo Family Village. It is no random pick, but a choice I settled on after a long stretch of careful watching. A year ago, Seo Songgan's parents died, and the village bully, Seo Jin, seized the family's farmland by force. That left the boy to scrape by chopping wood and hunting in the hills. My quiet investigation turned up a great deal. Seo Songgan has outstanding martial talent, draws a clear line between kindness and grudge, knows how to endure, and is careful enough for the road ahead. Layered over a hatred sunk that deep, he holds every fundamental condition of a protagonist. He is the perfect host. With the plan set, I flick my finger and toss the system seed toward him. It sinks into his body like a shooting star, and I melt back into the shadows to hold my breath and watch. Right now, Seo Songgan is carrying his catch home when he stops dead, glancing around startled and wary. As far as his eyes reach, though, there is nothing but the silent mountain forest. He frowns in utter confusion at the line of gilded characters that has surfaced in his mind without warning. It asks whether he wants to know the meaning of life and whether he wants to become powerful. Tells him the fairness system is at his service, and asks him to bind now. Though illiterate, he somehow grasps their meaning, and after a few seconds of hesitation, he finally speaks his agreement. In a blink, a light screen opens inside his sea of consciousness. Shocked and curious in equal measure, he follows the navigation and starts exploring. When he opens the personal center, it lays him bare. His name is Seo Songjan, of the human race, 15 years old. Of no affiliation. His physique a lightning spiritual root. His realm mortal. He has no cultivation technique, no martial skill, no spell, no divine ability. His energy value 0, and his system notification 0. He stares at the impossible sight, his face full of shock, and yet a burning light erupts from the depths of his eyes. This has to be the heavens taking pity on him at last, granting him a heaven-defying opportunity. If he can only seize this chance, the turning point to reclaim his land, kill his enemy with his own hands, and rewrite his fate is laid out right before him. He glances around warily, confirms no one caught his strangeness, and quickens his pace home. The moment he is inside, he bars the door and throws himself into studying the mysterious fairness system. When his consciousness settles on the phonetic literacy primer, a flood of information pours into his soul like a stream. A boy who could not read a word learns every character in an instant, the words feeling innate and rooting themselves in his mind. In that primer, I restored the original meanings of the characters on purpose. In this world, the knowledge of writing is monopolized by the powerful and rich, who twist the meanings of words however they please. I built the primer precisely to shatter that monopoly over language and strike at their very roots, marveling at knowledge that feels drilled into him by 1,000 repetitions. Seo Sangan opens the body forging foundation establishment method and the old farmer's art. A moment later, the full contents of both techniques stand clear in his head. He swears to himself that Seo Jin had better wait. The man seized his family's property on the strength of a little martial skill. But once Seo Sangan masters the body forging foundation establishment method, he will show him exactly how formidable he can be. He has waited a whole year for a single opportunity, and now he will prove he can take back everything he lost. He explores deeper into the mall. Apart from the items marked free, everything else demands energy points. He learns that a host can also sell the mall things it has not yet collected, such as cultivation techniques and books, for a one-time sum of energy points. Afterward, he takes 10% of the price whenever someone buys what he uploaded. He sighs that he has nothing worth uploading. For now, he can only lean on the system's automatic conversion of outside energy and save up slowly, since the mall holds far too many good things to reach any other way. Sensing his situation through the system, I let surprise cross my face. So the boy carries a lightning spiritual root. With aptitude that fine, the cultivation sects would trample each other to take him as a disciple if they knew. Yet talents like his lie buried all across the countryside, and now, with the system, I can dig every one of them out. I perform a movement technique and vanish on the spot. Then I scatter another 100 systems across the surrounding mountain villages before I stop, since for these early stages, 100 hosts is more than enough to test and verify by. 100 lucky souls, I murmur to myself, a faint and barely visible smile hooking my mouth. I have handed you the opportunity. How far you climb with it remains to be seen. Back at the clinic, I bury myself in comprehending Great Tao laws while quietly monitoring how the system runs. 3 months go by fast, and all 100 hosts throw themselves into practice. But to my mild surprise, not a single one posts anything on the forum. Either these hosts are inward by nature and feel no urge to share, or they act so cautiously that they will not risk exposing a secret in a careless moment. As much as I crave more data to refine the thing, I have to admit the 100 of them have carried themselves well. Their habit of moving steadily and thinking matters through is exactly why I chose them as the first batch. The 3 months of watching were not fruitless either. No major flaws surfaced, but the smaller ones did. Slow detection, sluggish operation, and low energy conversion efficiency all laid bare. Looking over the optimized system version 2, I push the update straight to the 100 hosts, through the back end. A notification pops up on every one of their screens at once. Seo Songan opens his and reads that the system has upgraded to version 2 and asks him to update in good time for a better experience. He weighs it a moment, then taps upgrade, and before long it finishes. When he reopens the personal center, the page loads faster and lays itself out clean. His name is Seo Sangan, his nickname still blank. Of the human race. 15. Of no affiliation. Physique a lightning spiritual root. Realm the body tempering realm at 50% progress. His cultivation techniques read the body forging foundation establishment method and the old farmer's art. No martial skill, no divine ability. His energy value 90. His system notification 0. He blinks at the newly added nickname line and wonders aloud what it is. Then he clicks it with his consciousness and understands at once. The option exists for the forum, so a host need never show his real name there. The system, he decides, has thought things through carefully, and his nickname will be Pyongan. He never dared touch the forum before, for fear of exposing who he was. But with a nickname standing in for his real name, as long as he keeps his actual circumstances hidden, he will be fine. Besides, he is curious whether anyone else out there carries a system too. With that, he posts his first message to the forum, asking whether anyone is there. The message surprises me even though I built the thing that carried it. I had only just switched on the new nickname feature, and already someone is posting on the forum. The stranger wants to know whether the person they are talking to also runs the fairness system. The comment section wakes up like a market at dawn. One reply chasing the next. A whole wall of people confirm they have it too, comparing how far along they are in the body forging foundation establishment method. I let the chatter rise and fall, then close the interface and do the math. The system is running clean, which means I can widen the experiment, but I still need to comprehend the law of karma before I can truly solve the communication problem. There is a heavier reason under that one. I need the system to stand on its own, severed from me at the root. The old saying is right that the enlightened fear causes while ordinary men only fear consequences. Right now, every host I sign is a thread of karma running straight back to my body. If I leave that alone, the number of hosts will climb into the millions, and the debt piling up on the far end of those threads becomes a blade at my own throat. So I move. I travel the villages and towns ringing Chungsan Town and hand out the system, seating a full 1,000 before I stop. Then I go home to my quiet little life. Some days, I sink into the great Tao laws and lose the whole afternoon. Some days I just throw a stick for Little Yellow and let the world run itself. Half a year slides by while I analyze and deduce without pause. At last, a single thread of the law of karma comes clear to me. Among the 20 great Tao laws wrapped around my Tao seed sits the law of contracts, the exact one the system has been starving for. I cannot help smiling at the ledger of it. With 1,100 systems feeding me now, my deductive power has thickened. Laws that once took months to touch surrender in weeks. I have barely scratched the skin of any of them, and still it is enough to weave and upgrade what I have. That thought sends me into the back end to check on my hosts, and what I find nearly knocks me flat. I looked away for a little while. In that time, my hosts vaulted forward in strength, and the towns around them were remade from the ground up. Take Co Songan. He broke clean into the innate realm and spent his stored energy points on the 9 heavens, heavenly thunder art, an innate grade cultivation technique. Then he went home and personally put down Co Jin, the bully who had ruled Co family village for years. He clawed back his family's stolen fields and handed every other seized plot back to its rightful owners. Overnight, he became a local hero. I read the host log and laugh out loud, because of course it worked. Given enough time, breaking the fixed rules of this world stops being a daydream and becomes a schedule. Then the laugh dies in my throat. Some host someday is going to use my gift to do something vile. If I hand a monster the tools and then watch him work, the blood is on my hands too. Right there, I decide the next version gets a good and evil identification feature. It will strain out anyone with a rotten core before they ever bind. I add a second rule on top of it, a hard trigger that forces an unbinding the instant a host commits some unforgivable evil. I would rather the punishment be an execution, honestly. But a system that kills its own users makes everyone nervous, and nervous people do not spread the product. So I settle for the second best deterrent and take the tool away instead of the life. Even that works as a standing warning. It keeps every host from stomping across the obvious moral lines. I keep the bar reasonable too, because if I demanded sainthood, almost nobody would qualify. All I require is that a person not be outright heinous, not hollowed out of every scrap of humanity, and then they can bind. I raise my hands and start weaving the new system out of the laws I hold, the light pooling between my fingers. The first attempt collapses the moment the architecture takes shape. I pick apart the failure, deduce, patch, and try again. It is not until the 30th attempt that the fairness system, version 3, finally holds together. This build strains out the impure at the door. It also quietly unbinds any host who racks up too much evil after the fact. On top of that, it gains a messenger chat function, a task hall, and a scan-to-pay module, while the forum grows up enough to carry videos and pictures. The task hall is my steering wheel. Through it, I can post system tasks and nudge my hosts wherever I want them. The mall now sells system seeds as well, copied straight off the subsystem as a blueprint. Any host who spends 100 energy points can buy a seed and pass the system to someone else. Buying a paid secret manual now binds the reader to a contract, and breaking that contract means execution on the spot. Under the hood, everything else got sharper too. Energy storage jumped 200-fold and conversion efficiency 10-fold. The deduction power grew heavier still, and information storage swelled 1,000,000-fold, enough to hold an ocean of data. The communication problem finally cracks open, not real-time across any distance yet, but enough for now. The security got meaner as well. Even if some expert pries the system loose, they will not crack its core secrets in any hurry. Best of all, I use the law of karma to cleave the system off from my own body and stand it up as an origin system. Now the karma my hosts generate ties itself to that origin system instead of to me. The debt that would have strangled me runs harmlessly into a vessel built to hold it. I look over version 3 and cannot help crowing that this is like trading a slingshot for a cannon. A system woven from pure Great Tao laws leaves every earlier draft in the dirt. At least the beggar version label is finally gone, even if it is still a budget model. The early experiments are basically done, so it is time to push harder on promotion. The wider the system spreads, the more everything flows back to me. That means collected secret manuals, stockpiled energy points for my own cultivation, and raw deduction power for chewing through the Great Tao. I push the upgrade notice to all 1,100 hosts at once. They come apart with excitement and stampede onto the forum. Within a breath, the phrase Fairness System version 3 sits at the top of the trending list. The comments are one long gasp of wonder. People are stunned that their eyes can now take pictures and record video, that the messenger lets them add friends and post to a public feed, that they can gift a seed to their parents. All of it wraps around the sober new warning that anyone who does evil gets cut off. I scroll the wall and it teaches me something. I cannot just wait for hosts to spread the system out of goodwill. I have to prime the pump myself and lean on the task hall to hand out promotion tasks that make spreading it pay. When I open my personal dashboard, though, only 100,000 energy points remain. Most of it burned deducing laws. The points keep trickling upward, but I will have to sit tight a while longer. If the system explodes outward and I cannot cover the reward payouts, that would be a very expensive kind of embarrassing. Inside the Jesse Medical Hall, Little Yellow is holding a horse stance on his two hind legs. A bowl of water balances on each front paw, his own food bowl parked on his head, his whole face a monument to despair. I sit cross-legged in the courtyard with my eyes shut, my body getting off the Tao rhyme of the laws. Solar energy and spiritual chi pour into me like a flood down a drain. After a long while, I open my eyes, let out a breath, glance at the suffering dog, and sigh. I tell him I am too tired to care anymore, so he might as well knock the whole balancing act over. This is what my life has come to. Little Yellow has developed a passion for the brothels and their massage services. The rumor spreading through town has curdled into a masterpiece that the little doctor of Jeezy is an old lecher whose very dog is a pervert. My clinic was already limping along, propped up only by a hard-won reputation for real medical skill. Now no woman will set foot inside, and every man in town is leashed by a suspicious wife who fears I will corrupt him. Collecting human body data, which is the entire point of the clinic, has become nearly impossible. I dragged Little Yellow out of the drunken spring pavilion by the scruff only 2 hours ago. I still cannot fathom why I adopted this creature, or how the obedient pup I remember became this. I shake it off and open my personal center, reading myself back like a resume nobody asked for. I am Yu Eel, nicknamed the Little Doctor of Jase. Human, 152 years old, unaffiliated. A 5-element spiritual root. My realm holds at the Tao Seed realm, 10% of the way in. My cultivation techniques run the martial scripture, the indestructible golden body at its 20th refinement, and the soul-shifting and spirit-refining great method. My martial skills pile up past counting, from 5 elements palm and 5 elements fist, to void-soaring step, heaven-splitting divine palm, and space-rending sword technique. My spells cover fire dragon technique, earth escape technique, and immobilization technique, and my divine abilities still read as none. My energy value stands at 115 million and climbing, with no system notifications waiting. The corner of my mouth curls when I see that number. After all this saving, my energy points have finally broken the 100 million line.